So look at the actual.
And we're live. Good evening, all. Hope you're having a great time. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm back for another tier list, and this week I'm joined by James Ramsey. I'm going to bang this drum every time you're on because it makes me sound really impressive. James Ramsey, ex-40k international player, here to give you his top thoughts on the state of the old world. Going to milk that for every drop.
Yeah, no, it's already firmly milked. Not sure there's much coming out of that left anymore.
Just wait till next time. I'll do it again. We are here to talk some old world tier list stuff. As always, the stream and everything I do is brought to you by you. Huge thanks to the viewers and the support I receive, especially the Brown Knight tier supporters, Old World Arena, Krieghammer, Mechanite, and Ginger Steve. Really appreciate the support. If you want to support but don't want to become a member, that's absolutely fine. You can support it by liking the video, leaving comments. All of that stuff is really helpful for making sure that I get picked up in the algorithm and shown to more people. How are you doing today, James?
I am doing fantastic. I am firmly in panic mode for painting.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
There's way too much painting to do.
Yep.
For LGT, that is. But yeah, we roll, we try, and get it all done. I'm sure Friday night will be busy.
It really will. And I'm realizing I didn't put any tags in the video, which is why it's not been picked up so much. So we're just going to talk for a few minutes while we ease into it. But I think the state of spellcasting is an interesting one. We've hit a point where everyone's kind of realized what you should be taking if you can take it. Mm-hmm. And then there's kind of everything else. And other laws do have a job. But should we just talk about battle magic quickly? Obviously, I put a video up where I espouse that it's the best lore in the game. Is that where you land on battle magic?
I think if you just had to have them all in a vacuum and didn't have any context to any of them,
yeah,
you're just going spell by spell. Potentially, yeah, you could make that a very strong case that battle magic just on paper is the best with no context. But I think there are some laws that run it very close. Maybe are better than it.
Yeah.
With some context, with some synergy with the list. So
yeah, the forerunner for that for me is illusion.
Yeah, potentially. I can see that being a strong argument as well. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. So I guess the best way to do this, we have got all of the 8 spell laws. We've got troll magic as well, and then all of the individual laws that you can swap into as a caster of certain different armies. So Empire, too bad, so sad. You don't get one of those, which does mean that. Yeah, does mean that there is some actual thought to be put into whether you do take battle magic. You probably still do. But I think for me, battle magic, you've got 3 really good spells. Ones that I would like to have every game. Then you've got a conditional you've got 3 conditional spells. Oaken Shield, if you're a foot caster and you want to go in a bunker, that's really good. Or even if you're just on a Pegasus, it's nice to have. Curse of Cowardly Flight. I shouldn't say this. I say that it's the worst spell. And then I lose games to it. So
yeah, if your opponent forgets about it, it's horrible.
Yeah, I've been really screwed over by that. And then Curse of Arrow Attraction's a really nice, just flat efficiency buff. But it's terrible if you're playing something like Warriors of Chaos, where you might have 4 battle magic casters. Some conditional strength there.
Yeah.
So whereabouts do you reckon we're putting battle magic stuff?
We start with battle magic. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I think it's hard at the moment. If you're gonna say all that, it's hard not to put it in S right now.
Yeah.
And we'll see if there's enough stuff to knock it out. But I think it's going to be difficult to beat the 4 absolute top tier spells. Well, 3 absolute top tier spells and 1 or 2 okay spells, as you said. They're just good spells. And even Hammerhand's not terrible. It's okay for in some circumstances.
I played it. I was meant to play a game on Saturday with my Dark Elves. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. I think I'm going to do a hobby stream while I do some painting. But I was meant to have a game on Saturday. Didn't get a chance to because my PC bricked and I had to spend 5 hours fixing it. So I submitted my list dry. But I've now played 2 games with the list, the Double Dragon, the Sorceress on Dragon. And one of the games I played, I did take Hammerhand. And yeah, I was playing against the Green Knight. I was really pleased to have it.
Yeah, it helps a lot in that game. Yeah, definitely. And,
did I do a single wound to the Green Knight with Hammerhand? Of course not.
Oh, okay.
But the threat of it...
You tried.
Yeah, the threat was actually really nice.
Yeah, and having that to cast in both players' turns is quite good. You can do... a dragon does a lot of damage anyway, but it's just that tips over the edge, right? It makes it just so you can definitely break a unit with terror and get unit strength out of there and break one of them down potentially.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I have been, as I've said quite a few times now, I've been a good boy. I've eaten my greens. I now want to have dessert. I'm going to play dragons because I want to play dragons, and I think it's really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
The better list is the one that you've been telling me I should be playing, but
Well, we'll see. The proof will be in the pudding, right? You'll.
no, you're 100% right. Like,
if you win it, if you win out of tea, you can't. I can't say much.
oh no, this is not a results based analysis household. This is an actual analysis household. So you're 100% right. There's a build that is better that I'll be playing the week after, so I'll talk about that one later down the line. But I've been quite underwhelmed by the Black Dragon because it's only weapon skill 6, so a lot of the time you're hitting on 3s. And that means on average you get 4 hits, and then you roll your stomps. I haven't rolled above a 4 on my stomps yet, which is fine. I'm sure it'll even out. Yeah, I will do. I just haven't yet, and when you don't, it feels really underwhelming. So that's a little bit of a, not a feels bad because I'm playing 2 dragons, but you go into something, you're like, okay, this unit's stacked up 5 combat rares. I'm going to be challenged out. Oh crap! I only managed to do 4. Now I'm fleeing. They're double outnumbering me. This is a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, especially if Sorceress hasn't got the Dreadlord to back it up. Like, Dreadlord will at least give you 2 or 3 kills, probably most of the time with weapon skill 7.
Oh yeah.
Or weaker stuff, like maybe even knights, you'll still kill 2 or 3. Whereas Sorceress, without Hammerhand, is doing nothing. So you're relying purely on that dragon.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm actually pretty underwhelmed by the Lore of Naggaroth, so that's a good one to talk about. But I think that's the main downside in my eyes for Battle Magic, is that the signature spell you change into is not necessarily super exciting. You probably want to have a good signature spell in your lore, your army's lore.
Definitely.
Which is sort of the big knock for it. But I think we can comfortably start it off up here.
Yeah, we'll start in S, and we'll see if enough things to throw in it, or enough things can push it out of there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I can't see it falling below S. I think in the grand scale of looking at armies holistically, looking at laws holistically, it does so much, whereas some of the other armies, some of the other laws are very specific. So obviously Necromancy is one that's fantastic for a couple of armies.
Yeah.
But if you're not playing those armies, it really brings nothing. And it's hard for me to say that it's S tier across the board.
Yeah. Okay.
We have got some people in the chat. We've got Harry Houdini, Krieghammer. It's about to pop off. Battle Magic Best Law Easy. I agree. That's why I made a video about it. But good to see you. Existence says, let's go. Good evening, gents. One law to rule them all. That for me is Battle Magic. I struggle not to take it. I look for reasons not to take it. I was talking for a good 2 weeks to you about how I was definitely going to play Dark Magic. Yeah, you're 100% right. I just wanted to make it work.
It does take some games, I think, with Dark Magic, because on paper it looks great, and then you play it and you're like, oh yeah, it's okay. It has its good points, but it also has not great spells as well, especially with dry rolling.
Oh
even with 5 spells.
Yeah,
you might miss the one spell you really want.
Yeah, so where I like it is Wolves of the Sea with the Demon Prince. That I really like. Getting the Frenzy, because you've got loads of like cheap missile units. So Frenzy and Hatred there, I think is really, really strong. And it's also just like double assailment. Both assailments are kind of crap, but when you've got something that's got 6 attacks at strength 6 already, you're going to put just a little bit more extra output can make the difference.
Yeah.
Doesn't kill a dragon though, as I learned.
No.
Dire After Dark, Rune Law, 100% the best. We're not talking about bound spells, and Dwarfs don't do magic. That is heresy. That's a grudge. Get out of here. How dare you? How dare you, sir? Existence says, question is, will you have fun playing Double Dragon? I've loved the 2 games I've played with it. I have won both games that I've played, so, maybe there's that to it as well. But it's 2 dragons and then 1,000 points of skirmishes, so it's a fun list. It's a very fun list. So, let's do the 8 basic laws first.
Yes.
We've done Battle Magic, because I think let's just get it out of the way. Let's set the tone. Battle Magic is all-round great.
Yeah, strong start.
Yeah. Where do you want to go next? Which one do you want to talk about second?
Shall we do Elementalism? I think this is an interesting law.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, I played against Jack earlier today, who was playing Elementalism and Battle, and Elementalism's really good. Plague of Rust.
It is really good. Yeah, Plague of Rust. It's got almost like Battle Magic. It's got 4, maybe 5, like good spells, like really strong spells, and then it's got 1 that you don't want at all. But it's absolutely terrible. But the other 4 or 5 are pretty good, and Wind Blast is a really good magic missile. It's one of the few magic missiles that's not a bounce, not a signature spell, obviously, just like Fireball, arguably better than Fireball, and it's got a pretty good vortex. Okay, it's not random. It's not a Pillar of Fire level broken, but its damage output is very strong, and it's got a nice defensive buff that you can actually cast outside of of your caster, which is good.
Yep.
Limitation, obviously, in it being you can't charge, but it's still a nice defensive buff. Great teleport spell, and then of course Plague of Rust, which is one of the best debuffs in the whole game.
You know who'd really love this lore if they could take it?
Who's that?
Dwarves.
Yeah,
this would be so good for dwarves.
I love it. Yeah, like not having to take Grungy, just having to have like that 5-up ward on demand, like just casting it on there, and then like a bit of just having that Plague of Rust to buff their shooting. I mean, maybe that's why allies are banned, right? You're not taking that level 4 Empire Wizard with Lore Familiar.
But it costs so many points. You could fit that in for under 200 points with a mount.
Just that
unreasonable behavior.
Lore Familiar and 3 power scrolls just to force Plague of Rust through. There you go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some like real codified rule of 3 so that Empire players can only legally take 3 wizards, and then we get to January, we get the Arcane Journal, and they're like, here's a level 4 Empire wizard with a different name, but it's different, don't worry about it, and also you can take both of them. Really looking forward to that.
They're gonna have like Imperial Agent style Empire wizard. You just decide to join the dwarf army, right? That's like a mercenary or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Imperial Agents are 40k, and it's the Inquisition, the sort of like you wouldn't expect them to be a full army. You just kind of have them as an add-on. They might go and do some sort of special mission. But their recent release, they've had 2 sets of points. They've got 1 for playing them in your army and then 1 for having them as allies. So some sort of codified allies matrix where you pay more points to take them, I think, is an interesting.
Yeah, that'd be really cool, especially as a mercenary, because you do have the downside of them like not turning up potentially on a 1. They don't show up for a while, which is a big downside, especially on an expensive model. So I think that'd be quite a cool idea. But as pure allies, that would be pretty horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Flaming Sword is pretty terrible. D6 strength 3 hits is not where you want to be.
Yeah, it's even got a kicker of being flaming, which is probably actually bad these days.
Yeah, it's good into Troll Horde, but you would need trolls on 5s.
Yeah, it's not.
Which is not.
It's the worst assailant, right? Like, and it's an 8 to cast as well. It's really strange. I'm not really sure what made that be an 8. It's one of the worst spells in the whole. I think it probably is the worst spell of all the laws.
You don't understand though, because if I take that and I combo it with Plague of Rust, it's actually AP2. Big brain.
Yeah.
That's why it'd be too good if you could.
Perhaps the Dark Magic assailant's worse. Is it Soul Eater?
The single strength 3 hit AP nothing but flat damage 3.
Yeah,
that's pretty weird. Pretty weird.
Yeah, Flaming Sword's crap, and the signature is also fairly underwhelming. With such a short range hex, it's a low casting value, but range 12 is.
I think Stormcall is terrible.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest spells to use, and -1 movement initiative. It's like, who cares, right? It's not changing. If it was half move or something like that, it would be maybe worth considering. But what -1? It just seems like a waste of time.
I'm gonna upset some people when we get to a later lore. There's a very specific one that I want to talk about. But any hex with a 12-inch range, why you get allowing that to be cast on you? Like you've messed up in that case.
I think that's where you know who you're playing against if they start pre-measuring your hexes and being like, right, I can still stay 18.1 away or 12.1 away. Like, okay, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, you understand how to play a game of Warhammer. Yeah. Congratulations, that is step 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So, how are you feeling about Elementalism overall? Obviously, the magic missile is incredible. The conditional, like the give ground, is really strong because it gives you that extra bit of space. The Plague of Rust is one of the best spells in the game. It's absolutely amazing. It's a 21-inch range hex that's cast on 9.
Yeah, very good.
Or both of those could be worse. You could make it a 15-inch hex at cast on a 10, and I'd still be going, that's really good.
Yeah, so, and like you have some factions like Orcs with the +3 range, so making it 24 range is like, oh my goodness, that is very hard to stay out of, and especially as if it's on like an infantry or a cavalry, we didn't have to got 3-6 line of sight, through woods, through hills, everything. It's very hard to stay out of that, and they just dunk on you, and then get hit by fanatics and poison short bows, which love Plague of Rust.
Yeah, I mean, not the fanatics massively need additional AP, but
well,
I mean, you're never going to say no to it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, those Cold One Knights or other T4 2-up save infant cavalry. What a shame that they're dying on 3s with no save.
Yeah.
It's wind blast and unentrenched dwarves. That's a good point. That is a solid point. Also, if your opponent doesn't do the standard, I see you're playing Elementalism, let me measure all my models are more than 2 inches away from every board edge. You can have a really funny time when you push them off the board. Travel Mystical Pathways as well. This spell is
very good spell.
So good.
Yeah,
it's
there's a lot of good uses for it, and again, thinking back to auction, that combo of being able to drop Night Goblins and then launch Fanatics at people is pretty horrible. It's just a really good spell. I mean, it's got a slight kicker that you can't move again after you used it, which means it can't combo it with like Arcane Urgency, where you can just like cast that spell and move around all over the place. But it's still a good spell, and being able to teleport maybe sometimes more useful than being able to move again if you're in a bit of a tight situation. Being able to get that exact angle you want to face and turn your unit to. So
yeah, the one downside to it is that you have to be outside of 6 inches of enemy models, which is a real downside.
Mm-hmm.
But the upside is you have to be within, not wholly within. Mm-hmm. So you go one corner of my model, my base, my unit is going to be within 12 of where the unit started, and then I could, depending if you're playing like something line hammery, you could be potentially 24 inches away at the other side.
We have a bit of a house rule here that we say that we try to not abuse it, because you can get some silly units. Like you can have Night Goblins at a funky angle, teleporting like 30 inches across the table, and then launching Fanatics like in turn 1 into your opponent's deployment zone, which is it doesn't feel right, but like
it's rules as written.
Warhammer rules.
I'd like to see it fixed, but it is currently rules as written. So if you play against an Elementalism caster who's got 9 Fanatics, and they've deployed one of their units, 15 by 2, be aware, because they're going to do some shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. All right. So how are you feeling about Elementalism? I like it. I think for me, I could see it in S tier, honestly. I think for me, the Vortex is a non-starter. I know you said you quite liked it, but
I think it's definitely not Pillar of Fire, and it's not like some of the other ones like Column of Crystal, where they're very reliable, they don't move.
Yeah,
but I the damage output of it is very good. It's not too hard to cast.
Yeah,
which is a plus and a negative. It depends on how you see it. I don't hate it. It's one of the okay vortexes. Like it's fine. So personally, I would be putting Elementalism in. In my opinion, would probably be A tier, because it's not S, because it doesn't have the amazing vortex, but it has one of the best hexes. It's got a great magic missile, and it's got a nice defensive buff, which you can build your list around if you want that 5-up ward on demand.
Yeah, and the downside you mentioned for the 5-up ward spell, Earthen Ramparts, is you can't march or charge, but you've then got a spell that lets you just pick them up and put them 12 inches, within 12 inches where they were. So it's like, oh no, I'm only going to move further than I could have moved anyway.
Yeah,
which is not bad.
Things like that. I know that people love that combo with the Shaman on Chariots, being able to travel mystical pathways, use the edge of his corner of the chariot.
Yeah.
It gives you, that basis, I think is it 100 mils long or something? It's
100 by 50, yeah. So you get an extra 4 inches on your... Basically, if you want to not be Vile-Tided by something with travel mystical pathways, you've got to be, 31 inches away? Is it more than that?
It must be, it's a 15 range, is it? Plus
15 plus 16, 31.
Which is obviously a lot better than just moving, is it 8 for a chariot? So it gives you that little bit of extra room.
Might even be 7, honestly, for the...
for a beast chariot, it's pretty slow. Yeah, so it's almost an auto take if you can try and get that on your wizard with the Hag Tree Fetish, whatever it's called.
100%, yeah. I'd say this is an auto pick if you're playing Beastman, and not, as I have previously said and been corrected on stream, battle magic, because you can't take battle magic. Can you imagine?
You would, but yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I don't get rerolls on my Pillar of Fire. Shame. I'll just have to have 2 very good magic missiles as well. Yeah. So I'm pretty comfortable putting it in A as well. So we've had Orc Boss in chat said, haven't got to play with a ton of magic laws yet, but Waaagh magic hasn't let me down so far. working Warriors of Chaos and Dark Magic seems pretty good. So I reckon we talk about Waaagh Magic next.
Yes, this is one of the most fun lores to play with.
I agree.
I really love playing with it because it's got some good spells, but it's also got some like kind of crazy spells that that don't can just do some mad things. Like Foot of Gork is just an absolutely nuts spell. I really, really dislike playing against Foot of Gork because you just don't know where this 5-inch bloody template is going to end up after a couple of turns that thing flying around. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think of it?
First of all, this is one of my favourite lores to take as orcs if I can't take a lore familiar. So if I want a second caster, and I'm just like, I want 2 casters for like zone control, maybe I'm putting dispelling items on them, maybe I have a plan, or maybe I want to try and abuse the additional charge range or AP. This is a caster that I'm pretty happy to just take four spells on. Not all of them are super exciting, but yeah, like here we go. Plus 3 inches to declarable charge, plus D3 inches to the actual result.
And it's an aura as well, so it's like
it's a command range aura.
To get that as a buff, Bretonnians pay 40 points for that upgrade on one character on one unit. So have that as an aura on an army that probably wants to be in combat with a lot of the time. Maybe not all the time, but a lot of units want to be in combat in that army. So being able to increase the movement of slow infantry, that make them viable.
It means that you can get turn 1 charges with 2 nomadic war units because you can give 2 of them Vanguard, and you just go, we're going in. Did you deploy in the line? That was real dumb of you. Why have you done that?
Yeah, and then of course you've got the other aura spell, Evil Sun Shining, which is one of the best buff spells. Fantastic buff spell.
A little bit of a non-bow with the Waaagh that the orc characters can call, but you can just get it on a spell, so you don't have to index into having another character, which is fine. Gives you rerolls to hit of 1s in combat and an additional AP of 1. And key, it lasts until your next start of turn. There are not a lot of spells that are an offensive buff, like an enchantment, that last until your next start of turn. Most of them fall off pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's very good. This is a great combo piece with that poison banner that I really want to play around with. I really like that unit of Night Goblins. I think they've got a lot of play. And also works with your artillery, works with your combat units, obviously, and even your fanatics. It's actually a really, really good spell. I really like it. The command range thing can be difficult to use, although there's a bit of a thing. I think you can use your warlord's leadership potentially to make other characters have a command range of 9 as well.
Okay.
Because I believe it makes their leadership, but I know it's a bit contentious how that works. It's not 100% sure, but otherwise the command range like Night Goblins is pretty low. But
here's what you do if you want to be balls to the walls, and it's not necessarily the best choice, but you take either an orc character on a wyvern, an orc weird knob on a wyvern, or you take a really expensive spider riding goblin caster, and you make them your warlord because you don't have any characters with a higher leadership, and you have an 18-inch bubble of plus charge range and plus AP. And it's truly one of the things you can do. And that's the best I can say for it. But it's fun.
It's the best, but it's cool, and I'm sure you'll if you can build your list around it. Potentially, it's got some play.
Yeah. You mentioned Foot of Gork. The reason that you don't know where it's going to be is it moves 2d6 inches in a random direction. If it hits you, it's D3 plus 3 hits, strength 5, AP 1. It's pretty.
It's a 5-inch blast. If you play against a lot of Pillar of Fires, spreading out units to fit a 3-inch template is doable, but quite tricky. A 5-inch template is almost impossible to spread out from. It can just clip a side of a unit, ends up in somewhere you didn't quite plan, and it just goes everywhere, all over your army. It can just pop through your entire army in one turn. I've had that happen to me, and it's bloody horrible. I've also had to have it happen on my own casters as well. Because
of course,
if you can just turn it off if you're kind of worried about it.
Of course,
I'll just turn it off.
If you ever want to make an Orcs player uncomfortable and stop them from casting the spell, what you do is you look them in the eyes and you say, "Step on me, daddy," and that has an 87% chance of making them go, "You know what? I'm just not going to risk the miscast. Actually, I think I've changed my mind." I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
The only downside with it is it's an 8+, which again easy to cast, but it's actually quite easy to remove as well. Much easier than Pillar of Fire and other things. And most orc lists are not running kind of a. They can with Goblin Wolf Riders, but they're not running probably the reserve move kind of shenanigans like a lot of these kind of Wood Elf players are using. So
Yeah.
most time the casters are often pushing up with the rest of their infantry, and we can an 8+ with level 4 is very easy to remove if you step into that range. So you have to be careful when you're using that spell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about your favorite magic missile as well. You may have mentioned it, but do you want to talk about why you really like Vindictive Glare?
Vindictive Glare is a great spell. Very easy to cast, 8+, same as a Fireball. Range 21, which is okay. And again, with +3 access, 24-inch range, magic missile potentially. A single strength 7 hit, which is gnarly for lots of units. And then multiple D3 damage. So you can one-shot an artillery piece with this thing. And most artillery pieces are toughness 6. It's a 3+ to wound. No armor, and you get armor, warden regen, but no armor save as well. It's just a great thing, and you can even hit units in combat as well, which is horrible.
Absolutely wild.
It's horrible. Yeah, if you've got a cast, if you say you get like 2 of these things, you can just dominate other shooting armies, just picking off their artillery pieces. Especially if they want to put them on hills to be able to see you. Well, okay, cool. I'll just Vindictive Glare them. Turn 1 with a goblin or wolf, or just massive threat range on that thing. It's a great magic missile. It's a shame it's not like the signature, because then it would be bloody awesome. But I mean,
because the signature is pretty terrible.
Yeah, sadly the signature is not good. But this spell, along with the Brainburster from the Orc, which we're going to talk about later on, that with a combo like maybe like on a guy on a wyvern or something, or like an orc on a boar, you can get some really cheeky little angles and some snipes of that, along with maybe a ruby ring. You can really stack a lot of damage from that one caster, which I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, keeping in mind that the only army that can take this are orcs and goblins, or very inefficient characters with the wizarding hat. Which I need to do at some point.
We did try. Did we think about this with your Dark Elf Shade Elf?
Yeah.
Trying to get Evil Sun Shining, which feels really difficult to pull off, but okay.
Yeah.
If you rolled that one spell, it would be pretty good.
Yeah, that 1 in 6 time, incredible. Not even 6 games at the tournaments that I go to, so I might not even make it on average. But so for me, keeping in mind that you're taking it in an army that also has battle magic, elementalism, and illusion, I think while it's good, it sits sort of in B tier for me. I'd struggle to justify putting it higher.
I think it's one of the perfect B tier laws. It's a good law.
Yeah.
You would be pretty happy with most of the spells. There's a couple of duffs, and the signature's not good. So you're probably going to have to lean on your Orc and Goblin signature spells, which are pretty good anyway.
Shame, they're incredible.
Yes, that's fine. But you will never feel bad with a level 4 rolling 4. You will get 1 or 2 good spells in this law, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done our Waaagh magic, and where do you want to go next? Your choice.
Shall we go to the other side, which was mentioned, which was dark magic?
Hell yeah, let's do it. Continuing the trend of Lord's really underwhelming magic. Not magic missile, a really underwhelming signature spell.
Yeah,
I swear some of these laws have good signature spells.
Not many do, unfortunately. See, the signature spells, you really rely on the ones from your faction, I think. Yeah, that's why like Empire really need to pick their law properly, because that overall battle magic and hope you get Pillar of Fire. That's kind of the problem to do. But the not having a signature spell is a big miss at the moment for Empire. I hope that gets. Hope they get something. It'd be nice if they get something.
So obviously from a game balance perspective, there's arguments for it. I'm okay with it on the basis that they have the flexibility to take. I think is it 6 out of the 8 laws. So they've got
they can take all but Waaagh, right? I think is it all but
Waaagh, high magic, yeah.
Whereas, but like high elves, I know they're meant to be like the best spellcasters, which is fair enough. But they get access to pretty much the same laws apart from necromancy and dark. But they get high.
So 2/3 of them.
Yeah. Which
they do get high magic as well. Yeah,
which is really good, and they still get access to a pretty useful signature spells. So I'd like maybe not as good as maybe like 1 or 2 signatures, just something that they could swap into potentially. It'd be quite nice. Yeah. But obviously we'll see when that comes out.
That's fair. Just before we fully move on, Ogre says, my favourite moment with Vindictive Glare was a humble Night Goblin Shaman, Vindictive Glaring a Tomb King High Priest, Hierophant to death.
Yeah.
Get wrecked.
Yeah. Strength 7 with D3 multiple wounds is not fun when you're a toughness 4 guy with like 3 wounds. That's pretty horrible.
Yeah. All right. So dark magic. Starting off, the signature spell is a 3-inch blast template, strength 3, AP2. You risk being hit. I hate that mechanic. I'm only changing into this if I'm really desperate. This is just bad.
Yeah. If it was strength 4, then you'd be like, okay, I'll be able to pick off some guys. But I mean, you're not going to hit many models, and if someone's got Doombolt, and so you're playing against some skirmishers, they're probably going to spread out a bit as well. So you're going to hit like 2 guys. It feels bad, like to hit 2 guys with a 8+ to cast spell.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the worst signatures, sadly, again, which is not good. Not a good start.
No, it's pretty terrible. So for me, the downside is the output is bad. Outside the buffs and debuffs are really good, but the actual other parts of it are bad. So it's quite a good lore if you want to take a lore familiar, but you run out of spells you want to take. So
yeah, sorry, I was going to say there are basically two good spells, and the
I'd say 2.5. Because
okay,
I think Infernal Gateway is pretty decent, depending on what you're playing.
Yeah.
If you've got you want to have a dragon not always be tied up, gives you a little bit of flexibility. But it is characters only. But you've got a really bad magic missile, and you've got a double assailment, and neither assailment is good.
No, unfortunately not. I mean, if one of them was useful, then you'd be like, okay, I'll take it. But I mean, a strength 3 hit with no armor. I mean, multiple wounds 3 is kind of cool, but strength 3 is like, it's useless.
It's a very confused spell. It does not know what it needs.
You're basically just hoping you roll 6 to wound on like a big guy and do 3 damage, which 7+, it's okay, but it's not something I'd want to bank on. And then the other one, a flame template, again, strength 3. It's like, this is not good. And the way you have to, I believe the way you have to arrange the flame template, you can't do some like crazy angle. I think you do have to kind of position it, kind of covering as much of the unit as possible, or something like that. I think the rule is.
So when I first saw this, I thought, what if I put this at the back edge of my base, overlap myself, and then hit more stuff because the wide edge is over more models. But I don't think you can do that because you can never target yourself with attacks. I think so. I'm sure someone will have a page number that they can let us know. So do let us know. But it just says that the narrow end has to touch the caster's base edge, and the broad end is over a unit. So you've got to. I mean, that's not always possible. If you're in combat with a single model on like a 25 mil base, how are you getting the broad end over that?
Yeah, you're giving them a risk of a strength 3 hit. Yes, it's not good.
No.
And then you do have a pretty good hex. Word of Pain's and a pretty good hex. Range 18, so usable. Not the 15 or 12, which make them pretty useless. And then it's got 2 debuff components to it, which is very nice. And I think one of the nice things I like about it as well is that you can cast it into combat and it stacks with other hex spells, which a lot of other hex spells have the thing where they turn off the hexes. I know you can do the order of operations to make them not do that, but this one doesn't have that rider, so it stacks really nicely with other things, like for example maybe a Curse of Years, which it then put with it to give -2 toughness, which then you're suddenly looking at a strength 2 magic missile being pretty effective, or maybe this Soul Eater, which is crap. You can still -2 toughness. Suddenly that strength 3 hit maybe is pretty good.
Strength 2 magic missile, eh? You haven't got one in mind, have you?
I have one in mind, maybe. Yeah, one maybe. Yeah. So it's a good spell, and of course you've got Battle Lust, which is every Bretonnian player's favourite spell at the moment. It feels like it's a really good spell, obviously, because it doesn't last. It only works when you want it to, which is perfect for Frenzy. Because of course the problem with Frenzy, you get baited everywhere. So having the option just to cast it when you need to have some damage, it does have the downside that it makes you have to overrun, which
just lose combat, bro.
Yeah, just smash and keep going. But sometimes that being able to kill something and then reform is more useful. Not always you want to have to overrun, especially if it's going to take you off the table. You might not want to use it, so you've got to think about it carefully. But it's a very good spell. Again, Frenzy and Hatred. That is just 2 of the best rules for combat armies to have.
It's very good.
Yeah, and Hatred. Hatred is just rerolls in this game just don't exist. So having that reroll mechanic on a whole unit, including the mounts,
and increasing their output because you've given them more attacks from Frenzy. It's
a very good spell.
Incredible. If you're hitting on 4s, I think you go from So you go from 5 hits to it like triples your output. I think if you've got like a single attack hitting on 4s, which is wild.
Yeah, madness spell. So I really like that. I really like that spell. So those two you're going to auto take if you're taking it, especially with Lore Familiar. You're going to have a signature hopefully to fall back on, and then the one that you mentioned as the half good spell is going to be the Infernal Gateway, right?
Yeah. Pick a friendly character. You can pick it if it's in combat, which is the important thing. You can then pick it up as long as it's not fleeing, replace it anywhere within 12, not within 6 of any more models. Doesn't have the rider that it can't have moved, and doesn't have the rider that you can't move afterwards. So you can get quite far with this, which is interesting.
Yeah, and so I like it, and it has some uses. But see, I don't know. Most of the people who I take this on are going to be probably on steeds or flying mounts that can probably move where I want them to anyway. So I see it as like an emergency get out of jail free kind of spell, which is okay. It's not terrible. I sometimes though would potentially take Phantasmagoria over it if I feel like I needed the option to put down some terrain, like just to slow people down. That might be useful in some games. The actual effect of it is
terrible
crap. Yeah. Like
so Phantasmagoria, 3-inch blast template. It's a magical vortex. It stays still. You cast it, put it within 12 inches.
It's just useful. Staying a vortex to stay still is pretty good.
This is all good so far. It's dangerous terrain. Doesn't block line of sight, but enemy units that end within 12 must immediately take a panic test. Okay, that's not bad. Shame that a lot of the meta is having, an 18-inch bubble of leadership 9 or 10, but never mind, don't worry about that. If you fail, you fall back in good order, so it's not even a proper panic test. If you're a half-strength unit, you still just fall back in good order, so you automatically rally and you don't go as far away. Oh, it says awfully. I've just read that wrong. And then it says those that pass over become impetuous while they remain within 12 inches of the template. So what that means is it has to still be their next turn for them to have impetuous. So if you want to try and bait someone into charging, you cast it on turn 1. On turn 2, they take the panic check. On turn 3, if they passed, now they have to take the impetuous. And that's assuming they didn't dispel it in the 2 dispel phases that they've had already.
Yeah, so it's not good for that effect. That effect is pretty meh. But having some dangerous terrain is useful. Like there are some uses for that, and I feel like sometimes I don't need to get out. Like if I'm playing Dwarfs, so I'm thinking like I'm probably not going to get in combat anyway because they're pretty slow. I might be thinking, you know what, I'll put some terrain down to slow them down even more. That might be more useful. Although they all seem to be taking that Rune of Passage these days, which is annoying.
Bloody Dwarves.
But yeah, it's still useful. Still useful.
So I think I want to put it in B, but I'm not going to. I think it needs to be C, because if we look at where the spells fall, if this goes in B, this is probably pretty low to the floor for spell laws.
I feel like if you have a lore familiar with some units you want to put it on, it's a B tier. It's a B tier lore.
Yeah.
Maybe A. But if you're just dry rolling 4 spells on the hope of getting it, then it's maybe even an F tier lore. So you probably is a C on average. I
think it's the worst core lore of Magic. I hadn't thought about it like that before, but I think everything else is better. I can't justify any of those.
Yeah, not even having a good magic missile is painful.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about if you can take dark magic, chances are you can take demonology, and chances are you should take demonology instead, because it's just better. It does a lot of the same things in slightly different ways, but it's very good. So you start off with the summoning, which is an 18-inch range magic missile. 2d6 strength 4 hits, AP 1. So it's a fireball on crack, but it's a lower range.
Yeah, it's 1 extra cast life now, I think.
Yes, it goes off on a 9 instead of an 8.
Yes, but it's still a very good spell. And anything where you can guarantee you've got some damage in your back pocket is just always good. Obviously, most people who take a lot of people take this law, are Siege casters in Chaos who already have access to a good magic missile. But if you're one of those armies like, for example, Empire, who don't have a good signature spell to take or can't take one at all, this is a really nice spell to take. And I know people love to take the Arcane Familiar with their Empire Wizards to be able to take this spell as a kind of 1 extra bonus spell from a lore. You can guarantee this. So you roll your battle magic, you take your 3 spells on battle magic, you take your summoning from the Demonology, and you take the Wizard Staff, or whatever, whichever the one that gives you +1 to cast magic missiles. pretty nice spell. It gives you an 8 to cast on this spell with a level 4, makes it very reliable.
Sure.
And you might roll 5-ball, so you suddenly got 2 5-balls effectively, which is pretty good on a level 4, maybe on a horse or a Pegasus. I like it.
Yeah. I agree. I was listening, but also the Winslow had a great point in chat. Conditional B seems like a C, so I've renamed the bottom 2 tiers. C is now conditional, and F is now F for feral, which is, as we all know, a real word. So the things that I really like about Demonology is it has an enchantment that's very good. Demonic Vessel. It has 2 enchantments, and I always get the name of them confused. But the cast of the Mounter in any unit they've joined gain +1 to strength, attacks, and AP. And it's a self-cast spell, so you can cast it while you're locked in combat.
Yeah, excellent spell.
Right.
Excellent. And it works on mounts as well. So that's, being able to buff a lot of models is very good.
Hold on. I've just realised, can you take it on... I haven't even looked. Can you take it on Dark Elves? Can I get Cold One Knights to
I don't
strength 5 AP 2 with the Banner of Hagen?
I think so, but I actually haven't thought about that.
I mean, I don't think it's good. Like, I'm not putting a level 4 caster in a stupid unit. That would be stupid. You can do it. All right, I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
This changes nothing because it's still a bad idea, but it's cute.
Yeah, you can definitely build around it. I've seen lots of people talk about building up Beastman units with this spell, building up. You've got your Gutter Runner Star you love to play with this unit.
Yeah.
So this buff is an excellent spell to make those units that are already quite good, extra good, and combos really nicely with the other buff. Is it Vigor, the other one that gives you movement, toughness, and initiative? Another pretty good enhancement.
That one falls off at the end of the turn.
Yes.
And that sucks.
Yeah, it does. But the thing is, I like the movement because now you can stack movement with Fly, which of course you have the...
So the problem with that is it's to a maximum of 10 inches. And Steed of Shadows is a 12-inch fly, which is disgustingly good. There's no reason this spell should exist. Lobbying for this to be removed as the main abuser of it.
As well.
Yeah. So my main issue with Demonic Vessel is it's good for quantity of attacks. It would be really good in an infantry meta. Like, this would just super up a Death Star to, I'm taking, a Zinch, not a Zinch, like a Khorne warrior brick or something, and I've somehow put a caster in there because fluff be damned. And I've just gone, cool. They're now all at 4 attacks at strength 5 AP1 because they've got additional hand weapons. But that's not the meta we're in. No. The amount of units that can abuse or use Demonic Vessel to the highest level, I think it's really limited. I think there's only one shooting unit that you really want to have it on, which is Gutter Runners, because their throwing weapons get the additional strength as well as the AP, which means that you're getting 2 parts of the buff, which makes it worth doing. So it's really a combat buff, and then you have to have the caster in there as well. Don't get me wrong, I like it. It's like a lore that I build an entire list around, but I think it's not as exciting as it seems on paper.
Yeah, I've tried it with Beastmen to buff up the gore units, and just like you said, it's good on paper and it makes those gores hit damn hard. But having the Beast Shaman, the Brave Shaman in there, it makes him very vulnerable. And you almost don't want him in combat really, because he's losing Vitality if he's in combat.
Yeah.
It's almost like a bit of a backup plan, but then you kind of want to build around it. So you're in a bit of a difficult situation with it. It does work quite nicely with things like Chaos Knights. It makes them good, makes them useful at that point, because Chaos Knights are pretty lackluster basic. So having the option to buff their horses and their lances up to AP3 is pretty good.
The Winslow says it's the best spell for the unit you aren't taking. That's basically it. I think it's still good, but it's just like you say, you've got to build around it, and then how do you end up building around it?
Yeah, so I think this is the issue with this law in general. Like you really need to build your army around this law. Same as Steed of Shadows. It's a great spell, but you don't. Sometimes like moving 12. Okay, like what you're doing with that movement 12? Are you flying up the table right into the middle of the opponent's army? Well, that doesn't sound great. You need to have a plan with it. So unless you can do some shenanigans with like skirmish, I think you need to think pretty hard about it, but it's a good spell. And things like Chaos Dwarfs love having their Black Orcs or Chaos Dwarfs that are really slow. Yeah. Probably their main weakness being they're so slow. Giving them movement 12 lets them, especially with the drilled from the Dwarfs can have. It means they can move ridiculous speeds with their marching columns.
Mm.
Triple move this fly and then be in a really nice position next turn and then form up again. So I think it's got a good spell, but you just need to have plans with these spells. These spells all need some thought.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's a very build around lore. You can't just slap it in the way that you can battle magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Steed of Shadows, this is something that you will be super, this is the spell that you'll build around, basically, because you're taking infantry that you want to get up the board.
Yep.
It's a good point. I think this is like the default lore for Chaos Dwarves, because I'm pretty sure they don't get battle magic.
No, they don't. And the Bale Tauruses that the people often take, they really like all these spells. All these spells are really nice to them. Buffing up their output is really good. And it's also got a pretty good assailant, which they like as well. So that the what's it called? Is it
Demonic Familiars?
Familiars, that's it. 2d6 strength 2, but it's no armor save. So that lets you just add that extra bit of punch to a unit which has got okay number of attacks, but having a 2d6 strength 2 just to add on top makes that unit actually hit damn hard. That Bale Taurus is pretty nasty, especially with, again, Demonic Vessel on there as well. You have that on a sorcerer on a Bale Taurus, and that thing is going to smash the crap out of you, basically, which is horrible. And it's probably toughness 8, so you're not doing any damage back to it.
For me, this feels like a B tier lore. I think I'd struggle to put it in A. It's too conditional.
Yeah, I think it's better than Dark, because it's got more than 2 good spells.
Yeah.
But it's not as good as Elementalism, I don't think. And it's nowhere near battle magic.
No. I like it more than Waaagh. I think Waaagh being locked to a single army really limits it. If you could take other factions, like, I don't know, Bretonnians with Waaagh magic, every day of the week. But I think the stuff that you take in Orcs and Goblins, especially the stuff that you typically see because it's really good, the Fanatic Spam, the Black Orcs, the Wyvern, it doesn't have as much of a place. So I think for me it goes above Waaagh magic.
Yeah, Orcs actually would really love Demonology. That would make Orcs.
Oh god, yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, like being able to buff up your Black Orcs with this spell. That's why Chaos Dwarfs are so good.
No. Friendship ended with Black Orcs. New best friend is Boar Boys. I would absolutely.
Oh yeah, Boar Boys. Oh god. Wizard's Hat, there you go. Let's go. Wizard's Hat, Bretonnia. Let's go.
Why not? Let's do it. B for build around.
Yeah, I mean, again, Demonology is a lore familiar choice, isn't it? Like you can tailor the things you want. I mean, even that Gathering Darkness is a pretty good hex. I quite like it. I mean, it's very short range, but being able to turn off Inspiring Presence. If you forget about that spell, it's a pretty good spell, because the fact that you can cast it into combat means it's not as useless as other 12-inch range hexes. So I like it. It's good lore, solid lore.
Good, solid lore, lovely. And Winslow's come in with more good suggestions. So B is now build around. A is for yeah, boy, and S is superb. So we've got some clarity. Some criticism I've received on previous tier lists is that I've not been clear about what all the tiers are, because the letter grading system is really difficult for people to understand. That's why the schools have recently moved to numbers instead of letters. I say recently, probably been like 10 years. I'm just getting old.
It's been quite a while,
yeah. It's like recently in 2012, 2 years ago. Oh god. Perfect. So happy with that one. I think it's over to you, buddy. What are you fancying?
See, I want to talk about the spicy one, which is high magic.
Hell yeah.
Very rarely seen, because to be honest, there's not that many uses for it, apart from the one really obvious use that everyone loves to do.
That's right, Slan.
No, not Slan. No, unfortunately not. I love Slan, but it's sad that they are, in the lore, like probably top 3 wizards in the whole lore, but they are utter crap. It's shocking how bad they are.
So you've got a level 4 caster with no like real inherent bonuses to cast. You can buy some upgrades that are crap, and you've then been changed after launch to be a large target. So now you can't be hidden, you can't be screened. You just
I'm paying like 100 points more than a normal level 4 just for the fact it's got a 4 up board. It's like, wow, this is really
absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, it's terrible. So you've got a really interesting set of spells here. Now, it's not got the raw power of any of the probably even A tier or S, or maybe even the B tier spell, but it's got some really good uses that some units can use. So, do you want to start with? Should we talk about Drain Magic? What do you think about Drain Magic?
I think it's terrible. And I'm
Hmm.
gonna. So here's the thing. It's a remains in play spell. It's a hex you cast on a 9+. While in play, enemy wizards within 24 inches that attempt to cast a spell must increase that spell's casting value by 2. You know what happens if you come within 24 inches of my caster and you have a remains in play 9+ spell? I dispel it like 60% of the time.
But you know what you can do with that thing? 24 inches is actually really good. The being able to sit your dragon that probably wants to get miasmid.
Mhm.
You put that thing just within range, of your Drain Magic is just in range of, if they want to be within 15, they've got to get into that little 24. And because you have this little battle of like Drain Magic versus like that kind of miasma, because that 24 is quite hard to stay out of sometimes. And yes, they can try and dispel it, but I think it's not terrible. Like it's got situations where it could be quite useful. So I don't actually hate it.
I do.
The only the only thing that makes it not as useful, unfortunately, is that it only works on wizards. If it worked on bound spells, I think I would like auto lock it in because it would shut off all those bloody Sisters of Thorn. But I think it's got some play. It's not one you're probably going to take, but I think it's not as awful as some of these other. Like I think it's better than Doombolt. I know someone said recently that Doombolt 24 makes it okay, but I mean, a strength 3 small blast. I just feel it's not. No, I'd rather have this spell because at least
It's objectively terrible. Yeah, I didn't read it out because I didn't want to be mean to the guy who said that. But yeah, sorry. Now we are. It is terrible. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I mean, this has got some uses maybe, and if your opponent fails to spell it, it is going to shut their magic phase down pretty hard, unless they sit out of it, which of course they can do. But I think 24 makes it playable. If it was like an 18 or a 15, yeah, it's absolutely garbage tier.
If it was a cast it and then it remains like it's not remains in play, it's just until the starting next turn. Unbelievable spell, like unbelievable.
It's as good as Infernal Puppet, which we know how good that is because Infernal Puppet normally makes you -2 to cast on average. So this spell would be as good as that. So if you think this spell is basically a puppet which you can dispel, okay, I think I'd take it as in some big heavy matchups with lots of magic users. I think it's got some play.
I think I wouldn't. I think I might swap into it if I've got 2 or 3 enemy casters and that's their game plan. But I don't ever feel good about it, and I don't ever plan on it working. I think is my problem. I still am a Drain Magic hater. I'm gonna say that. There are some fun things in here though.
Yes.
And there were some things that were way more fun before that. FAQ a couple of months ago. Walk Between Worlds, self-range conveyance. So you cast it not in the enchantment phase, which is turns out now the big downside. Cast a 10 range self, so you can cast in combat until your next start of turn. The caster and any unit they've joined gain ethereal and reserve move. Now, imagine if you could put a dragon, a dragon caster, you could fly around, you could be ethereal, you could charge your enemies, you can't charge and cast conveyance spells anymore.
No. So that made this spell, unfortunately, like nowhere near as good as it was. When it all first came out, everyone talked about Archmage and Dragons doing this, and it was very good, and it still is okay.
Yeah.
But it's lost a lot of its power. But it's still a pretty good lore. Still a pretty good lore. Sorry, pretty good spell in terms of if you can find the right unit to put it on. For example, like Sisters of Avalon, they really like this spell.
Yeah.
I also think it's quite good. Not that you're going to probably take it, go for battle magic, but it's quite useful in some of the Wood Elf armies that can play this. Having some of these units that don't have a reserve move, and be ethereal can be quite nice because those units are quite squishy, as we know. Something like I've been playing around with something like a big unit of Waywatchers. I think having them ethereal and having a reserve move would be quite nice.
Interesting.
Just because they're so vulnerable to being shot and combated off. So I quite like the option of that. But of course, battle magic's so good that high magic is difficult to pick, unfortunately. But I think it's got some uses, this spell. I think Sisters are probably the unit I would use it on the most. Being able to make them immune to cannons and, not dwarf cannons, as you know, but most other cannons. And a reserve move is always good.
Yeah, no, I think, I hadn't considered the Wood Elf Waywatchers. That's really interesting. I don't like Waywatchers on the basis that you have to unlock them with a character who's really inefficient.
Unfortunately.
But that's, maybe it's something that I should play around with more. You can only take it on the slan. You can't take it on the skink caster, can you?
No,
So you wouldn't even be able to. Yeah. All right. Well, there are some other bits in there. There's a fiery convocation, magic missile, 18-inch range, cast on a 10, so a bit of a higher casting value. 5-inch large blast template. It'll scatter D3 plus 1 inches. Any enemy model underneath it, so enemy only. You're not going to risk hitting yourself. Strength 4, AP 2 hits that are flaming. That's a pretty okay spell.
Yeah, this got a nice buff with the thing that it can if you rolled a hit, I believe it actually now lands, which I know was a bit contentious when I was playing back in May.
Right.
Because obviously the scatter, it will scatter, meant that it had to scatter. Whereas now they've said that if there's a random moving thing, if you roll a hit, it does stay still. So I believe that's how it works now, and that makes the spell a lot better because the fact that it used to always move D3 plus 1 made it like really difficult to use. But it's a pretty good spell. I mean, Strength 4 AP2 is good, and especially if people were playing more infantry, this would be even better. But of course, everyone's not playing infantry, so it's not as good. But I still quite like it. It's a pretty solid magic missile.
This is one of those spells that comes up with the armies that I've been playing, where I'm playing like loads of skirmishes that are bunched up, or like units of clan rats. And I'm like, oh god, this is the one army that you're ever going to play against, and you're going to feel real good about your life choices.
Do you know what's really good against this spell though?
No,
it's evasive. Evasive is
that's true.
You just be like they place it, and you go, all right, I'm D6 out of there.
But then they scatter and just luckily hit you.
I'd take a 2d6, pick the highest over a d3 plus 1. I think.
100%. Yeah. But you know that it's going to happen, and you're going to be like, fuck, my best laid plans.
Yeah.
Oh, what can I do? So yeah, that's fine. Tempest is really interesting.
Really good vortex. Excellent. This is what Phantasmagoria wishes it was.
So it's a 12-inch. Basically, you put it in a 3-inch blast template. Doesn't move. Put it down within 12 inches of the caster. While in play, within 6 inches of the template, enemy units treat open ground as difficult and dangerous terrain. They treat it as difficult terrain, and difficult becomes dangerous.
That is, I mean, it's pretty horrible. That difficult terrain really slows you down in this game, especially if you haven't got move through cover. That minus,
or if you play Fanatics.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. So that option to be able to slow people down is pretty useful. 3 inches is not too bad. Range 12 is not the best for a vortex, but it's probably playable still. And so I like it. It's a okay vortex. Not the best, but the fact it doesn't move makes it reliable.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's really fun. I will just quickly interrupt to bring you a quick word from our sponsor, which is tea. Not a brand of tea, but just tea in general. If you're feeling down, don't have a frown, have a tea. And back to the rest of the program.
Nice. So going on to some other spells, we've got Corporal Making, okay Assailment.
Yeah, I like this one. It's very unreliable. D3 strength 5 hits, no armor or regen, but you get wards. That's cool, but it's a really low number of hits. And from playing with Skaven and Warp Lightning, where you get D3 plus 1, if you roll that 1 on a D3, you feel really unhappy about it.
Yeah, so not one of the best ailments, but you probably most of the time you're not taking this. I don't think with unless you're taking a Dragon Lord or something, Wizard. Furicane, quite a nice buff plus on attack, and you're not frenzied, so you get the kind of the benefit of frenzy without the downside. So it's pretty good. Only lasts in the turn though, so doesn't roll over into your opponent's thing, and but it does work in combat. So I like that spell. It's a pretty good spell. And finally, you have Shield of Suffery, which is an okay ward save. Again, the fact you can cast it as an enhancement means it's really good range. Means you can keep out of range of things. But I always find with Wood Elves, High Elves, they have a lot of decent units with ward saves. When I play against them anyway, so it doesn't seem to have many good uses apart from maybe Dragon Princes.
The big downside for me is that all of the stuff that I want to last until the next turn ends at the end of my turn. And that sucks. I don't want a ward save that ends on my turn. I'm not interested. I'm just going to take better fights. Just play better.
Compare this to Oaken Shield. I know Oaken Shield you can't cast outside your spellcaster. But Oaken Shield, being able to last like the opponent's turn as well is really important. But I think this spell's got some uses. So whereabout do you think you're going to put High Magic? Where's kind of your thought on it?
I mean, so the magic missile is interesting. I think it's okay. It passes the bar of I would take it and cast it. Shield of Safri I don't like. There's going to be people saying, "Oh, but you need it because elves are squishy." Just make better charges. Fury of Cain. This is half of a spell. The good buffs in Dark and Demonology, Frenzy and Hatred. That's twice as good as Fury of Cain, well, 3 times. And then you've also got Demonology, which gives you the strength, attacks, and AP. You're just getting +1 attack, and yes, you can cast it into combat, which is nice, but I'm super underwhelmed by. Corporeal Unmaking is pretty okay, but in a lore that I don't really want an assailment. Tempest is a banger. I love Tempest. Walk Between Worlds is pretty interesting as well. For me, I think you have to build around it. I think bottom of B.
So I was going to say it. I think it's bottom of C. I actually think it's
I'm not opposed to that.
And it's. I mean, Walk Between Worlds is what's stopping it from being farable, because it's a lore that doesn't know what it wants to do, which is quite sad for a high magic, because you think high magic is meant to be like the purest of lores, with like one of the best lores of magic, but it doesn't really know what it wants to do. And I'm hoping with the high elf book, it might give some more options with this lore. Perhaps like another way of using it. So we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But yeah, no, I'm very happy to see that and see. You know what? I think I'd say it's better than Dark. I think I like it more than Dark because it has some things that, like, if you're playing in an Orcs and Goblins meta, which, let's be honest, there's a lot of Orcs and Goblins, this is really strong protection against Fanatics. And then you've got conditional buffs in there that you're probably going to build around, like getting a 3rd attack on Dragon Princes is fine. Getting a ward save on Dragon Princes on the charge is fine, especially if you're playing into something like, whatchamacallem, Fanatics. I think I like it more than Dark, but I don't think I like it much more than that.
Yeah. I think Orc Boss has asked a question about conveyance spells. I believe the way that works is that it depends on what the spell exactly says, but if it doesn't say that you have to be wholly within 12 or something like that, you can just place a part of your base within the 12 and have the rest of the unit outside. I believe that's how most people play those spells.
This is the typical Games Workshop wording of within or wholly within. If it's wholly within, the whole unit has to be within. If it's within, you just have to be slightly within. We may see that clarified or changed down the line, but right now, that's what it means.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's move on quickly to a banger. Let's go Illusion.
Ooh, Illusion, yes. Okay. So this is a lore that, it's so good, but you really, really want your lore familiar for this.
100%, yeah. The spells that are good are some of the best spells in the game. The spells that are bad are terrible. Let's start off with the signature spell. This is pretty good. Yeah, it's a self-range enchantment, -1 to hit against that unit.
I mean, and the fact that it lasts, the whole battle round effectively, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Low casting value, cast self as well, so you can even do it in combat. I think it's a pretty good spell. People don't really take it because most armies that use Illusion have got a pretty good signature they can take instead. But I think this is one of the better signature spells we've seen so far. And -1 to hit in this game with there's not that many rerolls is just a really good buff.
Yeah, I agree. So the rest of the lore is a mixed bag. Mindraiser is you take a leadership test. If they fail, they take D3 +3 strength 4 hits or AP3, which is honestly not good enough for making you have to roll to pass the spell, then fail the dispel, then fail a leadership test.
It's literally only good with Tomb Kings who can stack a billion -1 leaderships. It's literally the only army that can make this spell good. Otherwise, it's garbage. Yeah.
It's also only good if you've got ways of boosting your casting rolls. Let's be honest. It's incredible if you're playing Mortuary Cult and you can be casting at +8 very consistently. Otherwise, you kind of just have to take lots of power scrolls and feel okay about doing that.
Yeah, because the casting values are really high on this lore. Yeah. So you can't risk rolling just like trying to roll 11s and 10s and things. That's not good with level 4s. Yeah, Mindraiser used to be absolutely disgusting. It used to be like, I think it used to make your strength your leadership or whatever, or something like that. Like, it was absolutely nuts. I know Dark Elves used to absolutely love that spell. Shimmering Dragon, a pretty good buff, actually. This is, again, thinking with my Mortuary Cult hat on here. To be able to fly 10 on a unit that can only move 4 inches is very nice. That's a really nice buff. You can
True.
target other friendly casters as well. It's not just the wizard.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a really good thing. The only downside is it's not a remain in play, so it doesn't last. Like once you cast it, you have to wait. So it makes it kind of the poor man's Spectral Steed, which we'll talk about later on.
Yeah.
Spectral Steed, which is like ridiculous, but this spell's pretty good though.
Yeah, no, I like it. Column of Crystal, unbelievably good. 5-inch blast, 5-inch template, yeah, blast template. Central hole within 9 of the caster. Does not move. Impassable terrain. Blocks line of sight.
Oh yeah, so
Did you want to
impassable.
charge me? No, you don't.
Yeah, impassable is something else. I mean, that thing,
Mm-mm-mm.
being able to stop charges, being able to stop even cannonballs, which
Yeah.
I've been using a lot as well to block off your important units from cannonballs is really nice.
Yeah.
Being able to block line of sight from even big monsters can't see over it because obviously they've FAQ'd that these vortexes are infinitely tall. Very powerful spell, and the large blast makes it bigger than any dragon apart from the undead ones who've got the, for some reason they've got the massive base dragons that
Yeah.
everyone else can't see over it. Now it can be dispelled, so you have to. This is where it combos really nicely with armies that can use reserve move, things like Wood Elves, Tomb Kings.
Yeah.
Being able to abuse a reserve move with this spell is critical. So you can throw it out. I know Keith Wilkinson, who plays Wood Elves, he swears by illusion. He doesn't. He knows battle magic's good, but he takes his sisters. But his level 4 takes illusion every time since March or February when he was playing events. He's been playing illusion, and he's absolutely convinced that Wood Elves need illusion to be the best army in the game, and he abuses Column of Crystal with the other treating vortexes to make the army almost uninteractable, and it's very, very powerful. With reserve move especially, it's very, very powerful.
That sounds horrendous to play against. I really look forward to when I first play him.
Yeah,
that's going to be a real experience.
Luckily, he's a really nice guy, so...
Yeah. Matthew says, reserve move out from within 9 inches. The math seems like it doesn't work. You don't necessarily have to be screening off their caster. You've got a lot of flexibility with it, especially if you're playing something like Mortuary Cult, where maybe you're flying 10 inches or you're on a dragon, so you've got a lot of movement. Then you reserve move away.
So the issue is, for example, if you're worried about the 24, what you can do is you can fly into their 24 bubble. Mortuary Cult caster like +8, so you're probably gonna beat their roll. Or you're going to use a power scroll to try and go through their roll, try and get a really high roll. And then you're going to reserve move out of their 24. So when they try and remove it in your turn, obviously it has a lower cast in their turn. It's going to have a lower casting value at that point, but you're not going to be within their 24. So you've just crept in to cast the spell, but then jumped out in their turn. So yes, you can remove if you stick around in that 24. Yes, it will get removed most of the time, or at least half the time. But that's why it's so good with reserve move. Without reserve move, it's not as good.
It's also way better if you set the pace of the game. If you let your opponent set the pace of the game and put pressure on you, come towards you, fly up a caster behind their wall, their dragons and everything else, it's going to be not as good. If you put the pressure on and you make it so that they can't safely walk up that caster, they've got to, spread their forces out. If you can position better, it's backbreaking. It's so hard to deal with because it's not the only thing in the lore that stops you from casting spells. Let's talk about Miasmic Mirage.
Oh yeah, so this is it's a spell that like everyone has nightmares about being cast on their 600-point Chaos Lord dragon. That's why pretty much all the dragons have got brazen collars to try and stop the spell. I mean, even Wood Elf dragons are starting to put 2 lodestones on to try and stop this spell, because if this spell goes off on your dragon, you are very sad. Because also not only are you going to be stuck, not be able to charge, you're also slower as well, which is annoying. You also can't march. So like I know that dragons can often try and get out of there, but -2 move and no marching is very annoying. And you then can't charge to kind of get away from it next turn, because the only downside with this spell is that once you're in combat, you are safe from it. So almost the best way to get is just to try and get in there as fast as possible and avoid it. But if you get it on you before you get into combat, it's horrible. And this plus Column of Crystal makes this lore chef kiss for these kind of armies that love to stay out of combat.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Huge fan of it. I think those 2 spells are the reason to take it. You can do funny things with Spectral Doppelganger.
So Spectral Doppelganger, of course, there's lots of models that want to do this, but don't do it very well. I think the best I've come across is the Tomb King High Lich Priest on a dragon. I think it's a pretty good use of it because you can cast it reliably.
He has a
And
20 odd point magic weapon that's basically a great weapon.
yeah, and it means that he can cast it like reliably at a good enough cast where it's probably not going to not be dispelled, and he can do it in both players' turns. So I think it's a really good use for him. It makes him just good enough to be that combat piece that maybe mortar cult struggle with. They don't really have that Tomb King on Dragon to go and bully units with. So having that is a really nice option. Other people that use it, I always feel a bit underwhelmed. It's like on paper it seems disgusting, but I haven't seen other units use it.
Chaos Demons, they are pretty
Oh
solid
yeah,
with it.
keeper.
Keeper or a Lord of Change, both are pretty fine. The Keeper's obviously hitting harder, but the Lord of Change is going to get it more consistently, more likely to get the spell off.
Yes, that's the downside. They have to roll it unless they can get 5 spells, can't they, on one of on the Lord of Change? But the not having it automatically is a little bit of a weakness. But yeah, it's a very good spell with those magic weapons.
Yeah.
And sadly, you've got the absolute dump. This is the worst spell in the game. Confounding Convocation. I think it's called.
You're speaking my language.
Oh, it's awful. Honestly, this is the worst. I think this is the worst spell in the whole game.
It's a 9-inch range hex that gives your opponent stupidity,
and it's remain in play as well. So it's not only is it like crap. You're gonna in 9 inches. It's gonna be dispelled next turn.
On the upside, the way that it would work, you'd roll your stupidity before you get a chance to dispel it. So
I think so. Yes, I think you would.
So at least it's like effectively it lasts until next turn, but with an upside where if they don't dispel it, you're like, oh, we roll it again, I guess. So that's something. But yeah, no, it's terrible. If they're 9 inches away from you, put down a column of crystal, cast Miasmic Mirage, make them cry.
Yeah,
don't bother with this. The only way you're casting is if you miscast it on your own judgment first. Yeah. Fair. Yeah. Wouter says it's good on ogres as well. I can see a Slaughtermaster with like a cheap magic weapon because I think strength. I want to say they're strength 5, but they're probably strength 4. But yeah, like a Slaughtermaster, I can see you might want to put it in a unit if you think that taking a Cauldron is a good idea. I did, and then I played some games with it, and I was like, oh, it's not. That's fine. Cool.
So yeah, Illusion. Where we're going to put it? I think this is going to be
build around for me.
Yeah, so you're putting it in a B. So
would you say A?
Ooh, so
I could be argued up to an A.
So I think it's S tier if you have reserve move and Lore Familiar and the Mortar Cult with a plus cast. I think it's so good. But most
if it's Tomb King's S.
Yeah, and maybe Wood Eld as well because Keith's got such good results with that model, so I can see that being good as well. But I think personally, I think it's an A because I think it's the spells you can take with it are all quite good. Like, but you do need that Lore Familiar. You need that Lore Familiar for it. That's the number one thing you need for it.
I don't know why I'm arguing for less than A. I play against Jack Allen, and I'm now starting to play with it against him regularly. He does love his illusion casters. Didn't play it today, but I've been on the receiving end of the no, I don't think so. So
yeah, very powerful.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up the last couple because we're dragging on. We've got 2 that are for the undead. It's pretty, exclusively. Do you want to go Necromancy or Lore of Undeath first?
Let's do Necromancy. My favorite.
The better one. Yeah,
my absolute favorite lore.
Perfect. So you start off with the Dwellers Below, which is a cast on a 7. It's an assailment. It's a blast template. It's terrible. Let's never talk about it.
I think I've never ever even heard of that spell. Yeah, move on. Apart from Dwellers Below used to be absolutely OP, but sadly it's absolutely terrible.
They still do a podcast. Check that out. Some really nice Aussies that have been on the channel. It's the best I can say about the spell. So you know what? Just you wax lyrical about this. This is your lore. You do it.
This lore is okay. This is going to be one of these laws that you absolutely have to build around because it doesn't really work apart from with those armies that want to attack people's leaderships. But my God, this lore has got some crazy uses. So you're starting with arguably the worst spell of the lore, but actually this spell is it's weirdly not terrible on some of the units that can cast it. Things like the Mortar's Engines.
Yeah.
So having a 6-up ward on a 10+ as a self spell, okay, it's not great. And then being able to make yourself cause terror, which they already do, but then other units that cause fear can become terror causes.
Yeah.
It's weirdly that can be okay. I've used the terror part with Tomb Kings when they attack leadership and be able to make your Lich Priest cause terror. That's pretty useful. But having a 6-up ward on my Mortis engine means that sometimes on my second one I don't take a talisman protection on it. I just leave it and just kind of hope I can roll this spell. And yeah, it's not a good spell, but it's not a bad spell either. Like it's got some uses for those people who are casting it. And you can always stick this guy in a, if you've got like a necromancer on foot, you can put him in a unit and they get a nice 6-up ward, which, well, it's okay.
Yeah, I like it. I've played against it. I've fled from it because I was playing Skaven with leadership 7 across the board, and yeah, that terror sometimes just makes a difference.
Yep, definitely. And then we come to the best, arguably the best magic missile in the game, maybe anyway.
Outside the best core rulebook magic missile in the game, I'll give you.
Okay. Maybe there's a couple hidden away in there, but this spell is unbelievably broken. I actually think it's broken. I don't understand how this got through testing. I guess you could argue Valentine is maybe better, but yeah, 3d6 strength 2 on an 8+ to cast. It's like a fireball with no armor is just hideous, absolutely hideous, and it combos really nicely with Curse of Years and the other Tomb King one that they can also do.
Yeah,
they don't stack because both of them have got the rider where they override once they cast, they override it. But being able to make someone -1 toughness and then hit them with this spell is absolutely disgusting. And on a Mortis engine with 360 line of sight, and it can move, fly really fast. This is a great spell, really good spell. The only downside is range 15, but I absolutely love this spell. If I roll 2 of these, I feel like I've got a chance pretty much into any army I play into, because I know my Mortis engines will do a lot of damage with these 2 spells.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty disgusting. I love playing against Bretonnians, less so now that everyone's gone, oh, Pegasus Knights are really good, so actually I'm just going to take 1,000 points of Pegasus Knights and characters. But when people were playing, loads of toughness 3-up save models, I was like, yeah, give that to me. 25 points for each model, thank you.
Yeah, you basically pick up a unit, like a unit of 5.
Yeah.
Like you can pick up a unit of 5 like in one cast, which is horrendous.
Yeah. Wounding on 6s, really unreliable. Wounding on 5s, way more reliable than you'd think when you've got the volume of this spell.
Yeah. So then we have, in my opinion, the best Vortex. I think it's on point, on the same level of Pillar of Fire, which is nuts when Pillar of Fire is absolutely broken. This Vortex is absolutely broken.
Yeah.
It's
as long as you're playing armies that interact with leadership, which is the 2 undead factions, which are both very good.
Yeah, that's where it's broken. If you don't have that, it's still just a very good spell.
Yeah.
So it's a 5-inch template of dangerous terrain, and it doesn't move as well. So that is like absolutely horrendous. The fact you can control the battlefield. It's also got the 8-inch aura of no inspiring presence and -1 leadership. It's also got kind of the hidden buff of it being an 11+ to cast, which you might be thinking, oh, that's a bad thing, isn't it? But actually, that's really good on a Vortex. Like being 11+ makes a level 4 caster on average will fail to dispel it, even within 24 inches. So it's unbelievable for these Mortuary Cult and Vampire counts. This spell wins me the game if I'm playing Screams or relying on Caskets. But also it controls movement. I mean, if you play, me and Andy have played lots of Tomb Kings and Vampires, and we often have 2 or 3 of these spells. And if you have 2 or 3 of these spells in front of your army, you're not getting through it. It's just so much board control, and the leadership just...
It's also immovable, dangerous terrain.
Yeah, it's just
reasons.
It's crazy. In fact, you can put it behind units and then be like, right, if you give ground, you're taking dangerous terrain, and then you're -1 and you no inspiring presence.
It's a little hard to do with a 12-inch cast range, but if it happens, you were winning the game anyway, I think.
The combination with Spectral Steed that's coming up, or with the Mortis engine being able to fly 12 inches, makes it not too difficult to do this.
Sure.
Because remember, it's a 5-inch template, so and it's 12 from the caster, so that doesn't seem, it's not too hard to do. I've pulled it off a few times, and I've also used this to stop myself from giving ground as well, because it's when you give ground, you stop at terrain, so you can put it behind your own units to stop them giving ground.
That's very funny.
Very useful. This spell is just a great spell. It's just okay. It's not a Pillar of Fire in terms of damage output, but with Screams and Caskets and things, this spell is the backbone of this list. So you really want 1 or 2 of these. If you can get 2 of them, I think you're in a very strong position with these armies. So really good spell. We've then got Curse of Years, which is again not a great spell because it's got a short range, but it attacks 3 pretty good stats. It's sadly you can't cast it into combat. It's probably one of the weaker ones, but the minus and toughness does combo really nicely with the Unquiet Spirit. So I give it a pass for that. And range 15 makes it okay.
Weapon skill as well is actually surprisingly good because undead typically have a lower weapon skill across the board, meaning that your dragon is going to be doing a lot less, or vice versa. People are going to be headbanging to you, so having that is quite nice. Yeah,
and it lasts the whole turn, so it's pretty good. And then we have Spectral Steed is just a joke spell. This is honestly again absolutely broken, and the fact they combo it with the Mortis Engine +1 move as well is just nuts too. So remain in play, which again makes this spell just absolutely nuts to play against because the fact you just have to cast it at the start of the game and keep your Mortis Engines out of range, and the Banshees, which obviously this is what you cast it on. Being able to give them they already have Ethereal, of course, but making them fly. They don't have. Everyone thinks Banshees have fly built in, but they actually don't have fly. So giving them fly, and then they have movement potentially 12 with the Mortis Engines is very good, as I've talked about before. But this is also a great spell on the slow-moving Lich Priests in the Tomb King faction, and it's why I don't think you should take the Steeds for
dragons. Or do you mean horses?
The horses, yeah. I think you should be on foot because this spell is this good. That when you have this spell, you would rather be able to fly and not because you can't cast it if you're on a horse. So
that's fair.
So I think it's actually better to be on foot, be able to join a unit that you want to be able to join, and then also be able to cast this spell.
Yeah,
I think it's an excellent spell. 9+ to cast. It's just a really good spell. I love it.
Yeah,
and being ethereal, sometimes comes up clutch. Being able to be ethereal for your team to be able to dodge cannonballs and things, very very nice. And finally, Spirit Leech, arguably the best hex in the game because it's range 18, and you can cast it into combat. So that's just and again, stacking with -2 leadership on top of the vortexes, you can see you can get to -4 very easily with 2 vortexes in this spell. -4 is a nice sweet spot because then you are making people leadership 6 or 5, and then your screams and caskets just blow them up at that point. And that's why this spell is so good.
Yeah. So we're just going to go like this because it's such a good lore. Yes, it's conditional, but how many armies can take Necromancy? Is it 3? I think it might be Empire and then the 2 other factions. I think that might be it. Maybe there's another one in there that doesn't take it. But if you can take it, you're probably undead and you're probably building around it because that's how you're going to win all of your games. Yeah,
I mean, you don't. Some of the Tomb King factions, some of the Tomb King armies, I know there's a guy in America who's done really well with his double dragon, double sphinx list, and he's not running this kind of lore. He's using the illusion caster, so I can see in that army he doesn't need it. But most Tomb Kings get better when their fear and terror causing army attacks leadership. It just synergizes so well with that army.
Yeah, I agree. Happy with it in S, below Battle Magic, but still up there.
Yes, I think Battle Magic generally is possibly better. Although, if I could choose Battle Magic or Necromancy on my Vampire counts, I would still take Necromancy.
Yeah. But if I could take Necromancy on my Skaven or my Dark Elves, or etc., I know which way I go. So, I think if on the 2 armies that we've talked about, the undead ones, best lore for them, but I think Battle Magic is so much better across the board that it's hard to argue that it's above it. Let's quickly whiz through, because we are waxing lyrical. Let's quickly go through the lore of undead, which is the other lore that you might take if you're undead, but you're not anywhere near as excited to do so. Oh, no, hold on. Lore of Undeath is... that's a... whatchamacallit? Have we done all... Oh, we've done all 8. There is Troll Magic. Yeah. We should do Troll Magic.
Yeah, do us to Troll Magic.
I'll quickly whiz through this one.
Yeah, do that one.
So this is a spell lore that you take if you're playing trolls. It's just trolls. That's all it is. Big smarts, self command range, you reroll failed stupidity. When you cast it, you get to reroll anyone who's failed a stupidity. This like unlocks the detachment basically, because otherwise you're just never going to do anything with your your really stupid trolls and their low leadership. Yes, you can take the general's leadership, but there's issues with that. Acidic Bile is a magic missile. It's a 3-inch blast template. It's basically what was it called? The Dwellers Below, the dark magic one. It's not good.
Doombolt, yeah.
Yeah, Troll Brains remains in play, gives a target enemy unit stupidity and reduces their leadership by 1. This would be good if it was a hex / enchantment, because if you could give your own units stupidity, I 100% would, because you'd be able to then use the Ravenous Recourse. All friendly units with stupidity within 12 inches get +2 to their movement. So I 100% would give stupidity to my own models, and I'd feel very happy about it. Fettered Whirlpool remains in play, small 3-inch blast template. It's strength 4, AP 2, D3 plus 3 hits. It's a good output, but it's a random move blast template, so I don't like it at all.
Yeah, it's a C-tier vortex, basically.
Yeah, it's not what you're taking the law to do, so you can kind of just skip it. Torrent of Filth, Flame Template Assailment, again, it's strength 3, AP 2, which is fine, but you just don't need that in this list. And then Rapid Regeneration. It's an enchantment, 9 plus to cast, 12-inch range, until your next start of turn, so this is a good spell. Target friendly units gains flammable and regen 5+, and because you're in the Troll Horde Arcane Journal, you're going to be re-rolling your regen against non-magical attacks. So that's
very good.
Yeah, top to bottom. Conditional. It's a good conditional, but you're only taking this for troll magic. Would you argue any higher than that?
No, I think it suits them pretty well. Yeah. I don't think you want to take too many casts of this because it's only got a couple of good spells, but it's a nice one. If you've got Lore Familiar, you can stick this in there and take the ones you want.
Lovely stuff. Creekhammer says, "Grats on 2K subs." Thank you very much. I will probably talk about that tomorrow. I'm planning on doing a hobby stream while I'm off, so that'll be midday. Matthew says, "Necromancy ruins the game more than battle magic personally." That's fair, but there are less armies that can take it, so that's fine.
Yeah, it's one of those laws, Necromancy, when you tap your leadership and you can make them feel, you can have some feel bad moments because it's not very fun when like your army it's like leadership 2 and trying to can't do anything.
Jill says, "I can't see the Empire lore icon. You funny bugger." There was one up here that I wanted to address as well. Julian says, "Do you think a level 2 with lore familiar just to pick Fireball Pillar is worth it on its own?" Yes, conditionally. If you can take a spell familiar or like a Tome of Furion, if you can have a level 4 caster with 5 spells, so you don't need the lore familiar to probably get both of those spells. Yes. If you can't, no, put it on your level 4.
Yeah, I quite like it. A level 2 Zinch caster with Spell Familiar, Lore Familiar combo, taking all 3 magic missiles for like 100.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's 160 points. He's like a budget level 4.
Cast at level 3 if it's in the Zinch bunker.
Yeah, a level 4 with Skull of Catan. Like, he's just a really good caster. I also quite like it on Wood Elves because, of course, they need some more help with Pillar of Fires. You know, having the 5th Pillar of Fire pretty much is nice, and you can take a Power Scroll with that one. So you give them
stop
a power
talking.
Scroll.
They'll send the mob with the torches and the pitchforks. We've got to stop.
Yeah, it's unfortunately Pillar is that good that you will spend 150 points to have a caster with it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's rapid fire these because we're an hour and a half in, and both of us have entire armies left to paint for LGT. So I reckon we can do them all in half an hour.
Yeah.
What we'll do is you pick one, I pick one. We'll just quickly blitz through it and then rate them. Where do you want to start?
Let's do Athel Lauren because it's the one at the top of that list.
That makes perfect sense. This law's absolutely great.
Yeah, I mean, Tracing is useful. Flock of Doom's pretty crap. And the Conveyance spell is very situational. So for me, it sits probably in the conditional use. If the Tracing spell was higher casting value, I would give it like a build around or maybe even A tier. But I think it's just like you're basically taking it for treating. Like that's all you're taking it for.
So I think we need to contextualize how we're rating these because I've just realized this is very different. So these are, for anyone who hasn't realized, these are the signature laws for each individual army. And the way that works is you can't roll on these spells. You can only swap into them. You can only ever swap into a single signature spell. So you can't take one of the signature spells from the, these on the tier list already. If you're taking a signature spell from a faction's law, but it means you've got a consistent good spell to swap into. So we're basically going, is there one spell that I'm going to swap into every time? So with that in mind, sorry, just to railroad you there, I think it's very good because you're going to take battle
Yes.
magic realistically,
Yeah.
and
It's a pretty good vortex, yeah.
yeah, and it's a really solid vortex. It lets you play the board control game, even if you're taking illusion. Don't take -1 to be hit. Just don't let them hit you at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Much better.
I mean, yes, it's not a great casting value, but I was about to say the fact you have a reserve move unit means you can at least stay out of that range. And yeah, I mean, if you roll a 9+, which is quite likely on a level 4, you're going to get a big 5-inch template combined with your wood that you've come for free.
Yeah.
You can basically build a nice big wall of trees, which is very nice. And of course, it combos really nicely with the oaken stave as well.
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. For me, I think as a faction lore, probably should have made 2 different tier lists, but I didn't. So they're here now. You just got to suck it up. I think for me, it's an A tier faction lore.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just don't cast this spell, arguably with the Green Knight available.
Oh god, that's true. Yeah, because then he can pop out. Okay, terrible. F for Ferrible. But yeah, okay, cool. So we've got that there. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to intersperse these with the other laws. They're just going to be after them because otherwise it's really hard to rate a single spell against an entire law. So next up, we'll stick with elves. Let's go Law of Safri. And I hate this law. This is one of my most ferrible laws of all time. Hand of Cain. It's an assailment cast on a 6. You thought the assailments we talked about were bad. It's a single strength 4 hit with no armor save. You get Warden Regen. Okay, fine. That's 1 strength 4 hit. I would rather not. You can take Courage of a Narian, which is a remains in play, give the target friendly unit unbreakable, and it not turns off any other enchantments cast them. That's not really a problem. Just remember to cast your spells in the right order, because that's one of the only enchantments that has that wording, so there's very little risk of overlap. Here's the thing. You give a unit unbreakable, it remains in play, it goes to your opponent's turn, they dispel the unbreakable, then they charge the unit. I don't want it. That sucks. It's maybe conditionally okay, but I just can't see myself ever wanting to take it. And then my least favorite spell in the game, and this is what I think is going to upset people, Vol's Unmaking. It's a hex. It's a 12-inch range. It's cast on an 11. And remember, you cast hexes before you move. So you have to, if you're playing against a high elf player with this, and you have a dragon with a ward save, you have to deliberately be within 12 inches of them at the end of your turn. So if this goes off, it's your fault, and it destroys 1 magic item chose by the casting player. Why would you ever allow this to happen to you?
I actually think this spell is pretty good.
Get out my house.
This is someone though who's playing Bretonnians, who's very scared of their frontier axe being made into a hand weapon. And because I have no choice, because I have to go into combat with them. I have to get close. So I think this spell is actually quite useful in some games, just to turn off weapons. I think most of the time turning off ward saves and things is whatever, but being able to turn off weapons of lords that are trying to get into combat, I think has got some play.
Here's the thing. Does it objectively have times that it would be useful? Yes. Am I going to pick it just because of those times that might come up in a game where my opponent has mispositioned against me? No. Especially Bretonnians, a 19-inch charge bubble. They can just charge the caster.
But you can cast it into combat. So if you do catch them and pin them down, you are going to get on them. So I think I would put it in the conditional personally. I think it's got some conditional uses. It's not. There are some things here that are going to be worse than this. I can think of 1 or 2 that are worse than this. I'm
going to do it because I respect your opinion, but I think it's ferrible. So on the basis of what you're saying, we'll go conditional. But I hate this law. Yeah. Caster might be ethereal. That's true, but also you can move. You know what? Caster being ethereal, actually, that is slightly more. That gives it a little bit more credence. All right, you've salvaged it, Matthew. I can leave with my honor intact. Where are you going next?
Let's keep going to Law of Gork.
Law of Gork. Oh,
this is orc only, isn't it? It's not.
Gork is orc only. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So this has got the what's it called? The one that does 5d6 in a line, which is
the Gaze of Gork. So 5d6 range, casting a 9, and any model, friend or foe, who falls under this line suffers a strength 5 AP3 hit. That's not awful.
Yeah, it's okay. I quite like it, and that is probably the reason why you're you're taking this lore because the other spell is pretty shit. So sorry, I didn't swear. Pretty bad.
You
So
can absolutely swear; it's not a problem.
okay. So yeah, Gaze of Gork is the reason you're taking this spell. It's got some uses. If you're on a boar, maybe in a unit with like Wolf Riders, being able to reserve moving back, get into a nice little cheeky little angle. Perhaps you're on a Wyvern. I don't know. There are some uses with this spell. I think it's a good spell. I'd probably put it as probably in B. I think it's an okay spell.
Yeah. So I took a Wyvern Orc Weird Knob on Battle Magic, and I took this. So I had Ruby Ring of Ruin. I had Fireball, I had Pillar of Flame because I was rolling up my spells, but I'd taken the plus 3-inch range Icon of Gork, I think it's called, plus 3-inch range, and reroll a single failed cast per turn. So you're going 5d6 plus 3, which gives you a little bit more reliability because I swapped into this as well. It was aggressively okay. I felt pretty okay about it. The problem was I was using like a 400-point caster because I had it on a Wyvern. I think having it, as you say, you can't even, like, you can reserve move by putting them in a unit of Wolf Riders in open order, but you can't skirmish and reserve move, which kind of sucks.
No, it's annoying.
Yeah.
You have to play with the, and it doesn't give you 360. So yeah, it's okay. Like but I think just generally, I think it's not a terrible magic missile. I think it's got some uses. So I'd probably put it as a B tier because I mean, as a magic missile, having a couple of strength 5 hits with a good AP is okay.
I agree. I also, and I'm not saying this is necessarily good. I like the signature spell Brainburster. Single enemy model, multiple wound D3, strength 6 hit, no armor or regen. You're allowed ward saves. I want to make an assailant orc caster work on a Wyvern and then just go triple Wyverns in Nomadic Waaagh. I think there might be something there. And just having a caster that also wants to get in there and mix it up on a Wyvern is interesting. I don't think it's good. I think there is maybe something there to play around that is suboptimal but fun.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, so B, I like it. Yeah, Matthew has a good point. If you manage to get Gaze of Gork around Linehammer, it's devastating. It shouldn't happen, but it does sometimes. That's Warhammer for you, baby. It shouldn't happen, but it does sometimes, and then it's a great story. Cool. So I'm going to go for the better Orc lore, which is the lore of Mork. So there's a spell here called Mork's Curse. Whatever. You reroll the 6's armor saves. I don't care. Then there's Itchy Nuisance, which is possibly the best spell in the game. Hex, 15-inch range, which is like the floor for what I consider taking a Hex on. I don't want it to be any shorter than that. Caster 9.
Of course, you've got the +3. That's the key thing. You've got the +3 range.
You can take that, yeah, absolutely.
Which is what makes this spell even better than it should be. It's a crazy good spell, yeah.
Yeah. You can only take it on goblins, which is fine because you have to take goblins anyway because you're taking 3 units of night goblins with fanatics, or 2 probably at this point. But it's until next start of turn, so good timing. Target enemy unit is minus D3 to toughness and initiative to a minimum of 1. Why is that a thing? Why?
It's horrendous. And minus D3 toughness is honestly ridiculous. It's such a horrible spell.
Have you ever killed a dragon with this?
I haven't.
I have.
But yeah, I can see it. I've killed a lot of Pegasus Knights with it.
Yeah.
Making them toughness 1, they really don't like that. That's really, really funny. And they're like, oh crap, this is going to be a painful day when they're getting hit by poison bows and they don't like it. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I played a list specifically to try and maximize this into dragons, which was an Elementalism goblin, and I think it was an Illusion Knight goblin swapping into this. So I hit the dragon, I rolled the 3 on the D3, I got it to T3, I hit it with 5 fanatics. It was...
Game over. Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
This makes you, if you have this guy with lore with the +3 range, it basically means you can't go with an 18. It's a fantastic, and I agree. It's an S tier spell.
Yeah, Matthew killed 2 dragons with it in the first 2 rounds of S-Bot. Nobody likes a braggart, Matthew, but also that's incredible. Well done.
I do like it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really big fan of that.
I love that it's a goblin as well. It's such a goblin spell, like this annoying little spell.
Yeah, it's such an itchy little nuisance. All right, we're back over to you, buddy. Where do you want to go?
The next one is is it the Law of Chaos? Is that the Undivided one?
So Lore of Chaos is all 4 spells for Chaos Warriors of Chaos. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we've got 1 absolute S tier banger, and we've got 3 that are pretty situational. So I think we have to go for probably putting this in where I think the best spell is, because it's the one.
Oh yeah. Because you have the flexibility of taking the mark that you want to. Like the only thing limiting you is if you want to put it in a unit and you want to like cross mark, you can't, or fluff. Like Chaos players are one of the only army players who will limit themselves because they're like, oh, but I don't want to take this mark, even though it's better. It's like, I respect that, but just do a better list.
Do it. And there's an item now which lets you take, as an undivided wizard, you can take all of them, can't you? So there even if you're undivided, you can take that now, which is nice. And I think the ones that are useful are obviously Blue Fire is the absolute best magic missile probably in the game.
I agree.
Absolutely unbelievable spell. And then you've got the Nurgle one, which is the +1 toughness.
Remains in play.
That is bad. It's not. It makes it not
7.
as good. So it's not good. But then again, if you can stay just against shooting, at least you doesn't fall off in your opponent's turn. So that's always something. So I think that spell is okay. I think it has some uses, that spell.
I like this if you combo it with another buff or debuff. So like Word of Pain, if you debuff, say, an enemy dragon, so they're down to strength 5 instead of strength 6, and you're a demon prince, so you buff yourself up to strength 6. There's some play there, but it's a little
The acquiescence is too short range to be useful. I think 12-inch range and not be able to cast into combat is very hard to use. And the undivided spell is just minus movement, -2 movement. I mean, it's okay. Again, hex spells, it's got a 21 range, which is okay. But
just combine it with miasma. Like, it's so bad. You lose 2 inches of movement, and that's it. And only if you cast it on a 9 instead of a 7.
Yeah, I
cool.
agree.
You can still march.
It's not a good spell. So I think you are taking Blue Fire. If you're building your army around Blue Fire. If you're taking
100%, and you're taking it 3 or 4 times because you're taking 3 or 4 casters.
Yes, if you want to be the Chaos Gunline army, I agree. So I put this as another S tier.
You might look at the Chaos Army book and go, but there's no guns in there, and then you just turn to the Sorcerer's page and they kiss their pecs and they're like, what about these guns? So yeah, I reckon. What do you reckon? S tier for?
It's either S or A. It's definitely.
I think it's S tier because it's just the best magic missile in the game.
Yeah,
and you can swap into it on every caster, and you can take it with battle magic.
Is it the best?
I think so. 18-inch range, strength 4, AP2.
There is one just coming up that might have something to say about that.
I think it's better than Viletide, and the reason for that is I can take 4 casters that all cast this at +4 or more. Whereas Viletide, I take the first Viletide and my opponent cries. I take a second Viletide and they're like, oh, that's there as well. So for me, I think it's better than Viletide. I'm not opposed to. Let's just talk about it. Yeah. So then there's the Viletide Law, also known as Law of Beasts.
Viletide Law, yeah.
The Viletide Law. Yeah. So is there another spell in there? Oh shit! There's 2 other spells in there. That's incredible. I didn't know.
I've never seen anyone use it. I know I have. I've seen Tom Carey. He used. I think he used Devolve.
I think this was very early in the testing of Beastmen.
He used it to make a really cool casting guy on a chariot, which was I respect that. It was kind of fun.
So Devolve is a magic missile. Take a leadership test, lose a number of wounds equal to the amount by which it fails the test. Oh, hey, it screams, but worse because you have to cast a spell and you can't cast it into combat. And you have to respect line of sight. Oh, I guess you kind of do for Welling Dirge. Yeah. Then there's Mantle of Gork, which is an enchantment.
That's the spell he was using, Mantle of Gork.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Plus D6 modify to their strengths and attacks. However, if you roll a 6, the modifier is lost, and the caster instead loses a single wound. I like this.
He comboed this with Demonology to have the demonic vigor, is it? The one with the strength attack and AP, and then this spell.
I kind of fuck with that.
Yeah, and he had a magic weapon, I think, as well. It was quite a nice little combo on this chariot. So but of course Viletide is just so much easy to use, right? It's kind of click and.
I think I could genuinely see this as a second caster. You go one with Viletide, and then you go, I'm not taking a second Viletide caster because I'm just going to take a beat stick, which is probably worse than just taking a tooled up beat stick lord or whatever. But I feel better about it because I'm casting spells, and that is a point of interaction. I feel good.
Yeah, I think it's got some fun. Like in fun games, I think it can make some fun casters.
Yeah.
But I think overall, the Viletide is the reason you're taking this law. Obviously, with Hag Tree Fetish, it's a very, very horrible spell. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's the only way to kill dragons with Beastmen. Unfortunately,
I experienced that 5 days ago. I got Viletided. It sucked. And this was through Magic Resist too, and that's why I dropped my Magic Resist. There's a story for you. So Viletide, for anyone who doesn't know, 15-inch range magic missile, 5d6 auto hits, strength 1, no armor saves. Hag Tree Fetish, magic item that you can take as a Beastman player, reroll all wounds for all magic missiles you cast. Not including bound spells, so no Ruby Ring, but yeah, you take this, you probably roll into Wind Blast and Elementalism, and you just go get wrecked. So I'm very happy to put it up here. Basically,
I was going to say, I think it's maybe an A tier. As you said, I think on Hag Tree Fetish it's S. I think on everything else.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. I think say I was going to put it in A tier, and then I just didn't. Perfect. Okay, so over to you again, bud.
Oh, Lore of Nakara, which is the Tomb King.
Hell yeah.
So this is it's a good lore. So you've got probably the best spell that you're going to take 100% of the time, which is Reserve Move. So you're gonna roll this with probably Mortuary Cult. You're going to take the +1,000,000 to cast. You're going to get it as the aura, and you're going to be very happy. You're still going to take it, I think, most of the time if you've got even a non-Mortuary Cult army. I think it's very nice to have a Reserve Move on your dragons and Necrosphinxes. Lets them double pivot, which is amazing with lumbering.
I agree.
Gives them some really nice flexibility in their movement. And this is just a fantastic spell. I mean, you're 100 taking this. The other spell you might take with Mortuary Cult, because you're going to have a lot of casters, is the reroll ones aura. That's pretty solid on the BSB.
If you're taking a lot of Bow Ushabti.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And then the other one is basically Curse of Years, which, whatever. So you'll take the other two 100 at the time.
Yeah.
If you play Mortuary Cult, sorry, the other one. But you will take Reserve Move, I think every time. The only option is if you're taking the Bone Dragon Illusion Lich Priest, Glittering Robe with Casket is quite nice. It makes him very, very
-3 against shooting.
Yeah, it basically makes him
that's so unreasonable.
And even in combat, I mean, -2 is like very good. He's only weapon skill 4, so he's quite easy to hit otherwise. But being able to make those, or maybe even weapon skill 3, he's quite low weapon skill. So making those big lords hit him on 4s and 5s, or maybe even 6s, it's pretty good, okay as well.
Solid, like it. Where do you want to put this one?
I think Reserve Move as an aura is S tier, 100%.
100%. And I'm just going to go straight ahead and put the other Lore of Undeath in here for the same reason.
Yeah, and actually, it's even better. Like Lore of Undeath is, I think it's the best. I think if you're going to have to rank them, it is the best of the signature lords.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think it's even better. I think the way it combos with, if we're going to do that now, the Reserve Move is amazing.
Yep.
Buffing the weapon skill, initiative, and movement, and you can pick 2 of them if you roll high. Which you're
going to.
You're going to roll 2.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. Like, it's so powerful.
Yep.
And then the Raise Dead actually comes up. Like, it's okay. Like, it's difficult to fit in 3 casters. That's the only thing that makes it not. I find hard to use. But I know some people actually rate this higher than Van Hel's, which I can see. It's actually quite a good spell.
Lewis really liked it, but then we realised that they were skirmishers and not open order. So.
Yeah, so that makes it weird with Invocation, being able to bring them back. You have to have a house rule for that because it doesn't actually work by raw. So you have to kind of have a little bit of workaround. But yeah, it's okay. Like it's got some uses in terms of redirecting. But I think I personally prefer being able to buff my unit's movement because that combo is really nice with Reserve Move, being able to buff it. Now it's capped at 10, but being able to get to your Graveguard that are normally moving 4, being able to get them +1 or 2 from Mortis Engines, plus D3 with the Van Hels, so it's only a movement 9. With Reserve Move, they're moving 18 inches across the table with a unit that's, slow as hell normally. It's amazing. Very, very good. And then the combination as well that I love using is with Great Weapons. Mm-hmm. It's actually the reason why I think you should always take Great Weapons with these things. With the Graveguard, being able to buff their initiative is very good. With the +2 initiative from Mortis Engines, it actually makes them up to potentially initiative 6 with the Great Weapon. So they actually go at the same time as Swordmasters.
That's very funny.
Which is very good, and people forget about it all the time. They charge a Graveguard, they think, I'll go with one, I'll wipe them out, and then actually they realise you're initiative 5 or 6, and they go, oh crap, next turn I'll be absolutely slapped.
If they've got the standard initiative of 3, you're hitting at the same speed as them when they charge.
Yeah. And in fact, you get weapon skill potentially and then you also have the Helm of Commandment, which can also buff the D3 weapon skill as well. Yeah. So you can end up with weapon skill 7 Graveguard. They are a really, really good unit with all these buffs. So that's why I think Lore of Undeath, it's just an unbelievable signature lore.
Perfect. All right, it's back over to you, bud. Where do you want to go?
Lore of Hashut. This has got a couple
This is an interesting one.
A couple of really good spells.
Yeah. I'll be honest, the first time I looked at this, I was like, what a disappointing lore. It doesn't do the things I want it to. And shout out again to Tom Carley, who you mentioned. He has a build where you just stack negatives to hit on a Wyvern, Black Orc Warboss on Wyvern, by having, the item that gives him -1, and then you fly around with the Storm of Ash signature spell, which is a hex, a self-range hex, which is a weird thing to say. Until next start of turn, enemy units suffer -1 to hit while within 9 inches of the caster's model, and you put it on a Taurus model, or a Lamasu if you want to go cheap, and you just push the army into your opponent's face, and you find that actually a lot of T6, T7 stuff is really hard to hit and kill.
Yeah, and weapon skill 7 on Black Orc makes him like -1 or 2 is just disgusting. It makes him almost skill.
6 is a lot of the time.
Yeah, which is really, really good. I mean, there's only like Bloodthirsters, maybe Keepers, I think, hit him on 5s, which is ridiculous.
I guess Bloodthirsters had hit him on 4. Oh, yeah, 5s because of the -2.
Yeah.
God, that's disgusting.
It's horrible. So that's and even on your basic Chaos Dwarfs, like making the -1 makes it hit pretty much everything hits them on 4s at that point.
Sure.
Really increases their survivability. And it does work on the shooting, but obviously you have to be very close for it to work. So
yeah.
It's mostly a combat.
But it's fine because you've probably got, like a 5-up or a 4-up ward save on that caster that's on the T6 model. Or sorry, not T6, it's probably T7 or T8 because you take a couple of the Mantle of Irons. Orc Boss just became a member. Thank you very much, Orc Boss. Appreciate the support there. But yeah, no, I really like Lore of Hashut. I think
there is one quite spicy spell, if I don't mind mentioning it. It's because it comes up against me when I play my Banshees.
Oh yes,
it's the what's it called? The Curse of
Hashut.
Yeah, so I've been hiding my Banshees in Spirit Host recently to hide from Pillar of Fire.
Yeah,
and this spell even ignores that. So it's on a large target Bale Taurus. Basically, you are getting hit by this spell.
Yeah,
and it makes like a toughness check. And if you pass it, okay, D3 strength 2.
Yeah.
Which on a Banshee is still actually quite nasty because they're only toughness 3 with 2 wounds. But if you fail it, it's D3 plus 2, strength 5, and you're basically just dead. So it's very good against Banshees. And so normally Chaos Dwarfs hate playing screens because they haven't got the models to withstand like being able to be bombarded with screams. Actually, this spell, if you've got a couple of wizards, this is actually a really, really good bit of interplay with the screens. It means you actually have a chance to deal with them.
Yeah.
And you probably don't need the -1 to hit against undead because they're probably already quite low weapon skill. So this is actually a really nice option, and it makes me actually quite scared of playing Chaos Dwarfs because I can pick out these single Banshees.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And just the fact that you can shoot into combat and you can target as long as you can see them, which means, those large target models that are going to be casting it just have an absolute field day.
Yeah, I mean, how dare they shoot into combat? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. That's so funny, given that the army that it absolutely hard counters is the army that screams into combat.
Yeah, no, it's horrible.
Yeah. Oakbus says, first stream I've tuned into, really solid, feel like it's a great channel to learn more about the Old World with. Thank you very much. Going to your first tournament in 2 weeks, 1,750 points of Orcs and Goblins. Great place to start. My first tournament was Orcs and Goblins as well. You'll have a great time. Such a fun army to play. You were considering taking it to LGT, but then decided you might win instead.
Yeah, it was actually a painting requirement that probably stopped me. Yeah. If I could have had someone paint the army for me, I might have actually taken Orcs and Goblins. They're just so much fun to play.
I didn't realise that was the limitation, because I have an Orcs and Goblins army. I'm so sorry, I should have offered.
No,
you could have just borrowed them.
It's fine. I'll just use Bretonnians. It's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, you'll just win at least 4 of your games and have a good time.
I'll try.
Yeah. Perfect. Oh, and Tamla says the 5-up warden shooting phase from the Lamasu's Beard banner is the good stuff for Chorse versus Undead streams. And it just synergized really nicely with that Storm of Ash. So you're just layering multiple levels of absolutely not. So moving on, I believe. Where are we putting that? I think for me, that's like an A-tier lore, I would say.
It combos really nicely with their units. And I think as people are playing it more, they're realizing that it's good. The only downside is it is replacing the Demonology summoning. That's probably why it's not an S tier, because you kind of have a bit of a conundrum of
sure, because the magic missile is so good. Yeah, no, that's fair. It looks very top heavy, and that's interesting because I think a lot of the signature spell laws for the factions are really good, and it's why I haven't really cared so much that a lot of the other laws have bad signatures.
I can see one coming up that's probably going to end up in F tier, sadly.
Let's just put Lore of Lustria here. Is that the one you were thinking of?
No, I was actually thinking of the Dark Elf one. I just think Dark Elf Sadly,
Yeah.
since they nerfed
You
the
know what? Let's just go straight to that.
yeah, since they nerfed it, it used to be it made your weapon skill 1, which was excellent, but
Mm.
unfortunately now I think it's -1 now, isn't it? It's crap. And then you have a vortex, which
If
it's
if the vortex hits the black horror, you take d6 strength tests, and if you fail it, you take just a wound with no saves allowed. You just take a wound. That's great, but it's a vortex that moves in a random direction,
yeah.
and
So,
you know my feelings on those.
and I actually think I'd actually rather have D3 +3 strength 4 AP2 hits. I think I'd rather have that. It's just more guaranteed number of hits,
Yeah.
and it's got a good strength, so you're not worrying about strength, because some units might have a high strength, might be strength 4, strength 5, and you're doing nothing. So I actually think it's an F. I think it's the worst law in the game, sadly, which is a
I
shame, because Dark Elves should be one of the best spellcasting laws.
I'm not going to argue with you. I also feel it's ferrable. I've been taking Hammer Hand, as I said earlier, because it's just like my sorcerer's on a dragon. I'm probably going to get into combat at some point. I will take Black Horror at sometimes, and I will cast it, mostly just to have things on the board, but I don't feel good about it. Volker says, "Sup, Magic Boys, how are we doing today? Glad to see the dear Lore of Mork so high up." Yep, that's because it's incredibly good. Such a great lore. All right, so... you picked the lore of Naggaroth, so I better pick one. Let's talk about the lore of Lustria, because I also think this is pretty terrible. And why do I think it's terrible? Because you're taking it on a skink, because you're not taking anything else. So you've got Apotheosis, which is cast on a 10 or a 12, so you need to roll an 8 or a 10. That's not happening consistently. You can heal a character. It is D3 plus D3 lost wounds. If you cast it on 12 or more, it's D3 +1. You give them fear. If they have fear, they gain terror. I mean, sure, if you've got a Slan and you think you might take one cannonball a turn, and you think you'll survive that, and you want to heal back up and just frustrate your opponent, terrible. I can't get behind this. Monsoon's a little better. It's a 15-inch range, remains in play, blast template, dangerous terrain, no line of sight, moves in D6, random direction. -1 to hit when the enemies that are drenched shoot. How do you feel about this? Any interest? Yeah? No?
No, not really. I mean, if that healing thing would be really nice if
Yeah.
it was on anything, but it's infantry and cavalry only. So it's like you want to take. I'd love to have this on carnosaurs and things. That would make it actually quite useful. But the fact it only works on infantry is terrible.
Mr. Chaos says that at the same time. Can't heal a Slan. Yeah, like that's the one use I could picture for it, but because the Slan is terrible and not infantry. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So yeah, it used to be infantry, so it's now terrible. Sadly,
I
mean,
actually think this is worse than the lore of Naggaroth.
yeah, I'd rather have Black Horror than the Monsoon.
Yeah, Barkin, you were second to the punch, but I'm going to point you out because I like the little icon you've got there. Big fan of the vaporwave aesthetic. It's just so yeah. We've got Lore of Lustria also in Ferrible, but just all of their magic is so pour one out for the dinos. I really want to play some dinosaurs, but the lack of magic is really really off-putting.
Yeah.
Over to you. Which of the four pick?
So let's keep going. Let's keep it in order. I think do demons next.
Okay.
Okay, this spell lore on like first inspection seems like meh, who cares, right? But actually, it's got an absolute sleeper in this lore. This lore is actually got one spell that makes it pretty good, which is the Zinch one. I've forgotten its name now. It's
the hex.
The hex one, yeah, Gift of Mutation.
It's got
a very short range, unlike the Law of Mork one, which is nuisance, which is 18 if you have the buff. But this one again reduces the toughness by D3, and if you roll a 12 or more, it reduces 2 stats. So it can reduce your strength and your toughness, or your weapon skill and your toughness. So I just think any spell where you can reduce someone's toughness is just horrendous. It's just a really really good spell. The only downside is it's not as got a longer range, and it's also not, you don't have the kind of as cheap casters as you got. Level 3 heralds, which are okay, but you need to take then expensive Zinch units to go with it.
Yes.
Or you have it on level 3 flamers, exalted flamers.
You can have it as a bound spell from a unit of horrors, and you have to take 2 ranks, so you're taking at least 15, but probably 20, so you don't just immediately lose your casting bonus. And then you take the magical icon, which is, I think, like 35, 45 points, which doubles your casting bonus for rank. So basically, horrors cast at their rank bonus, so normally 2, but you'd be casting at 4 if you're a full unit.
Yep.
This is fine. It's really expensive. It's not worth the points, but it is in core, so that's something you can do.
So it's like but the problem is it's competing with Furies, and Furies.
Sure.
You're
They're so good.
You're a Fury fanboy, so it's hard to argue with that. The other spells in there, the other spells in there are average at best. The pink fire is sadly like
absolutely terrible. Don't take it.
Compared to blue fire. It's quite sad how bad it is.
Just take a hex.
Yeah, I think if you I mean, sometimes the hex is going to be like if you're playing Wood Elves, you're not taking the hex because you're never getting a range. But so at least you get some use maybe out of this spell. But yeah, it's not good. So I think overall it's a B tier.
Yeah, cool. Glad we're on the same page because there's one spell in there that's worth taking, and it's really worth taking. But it's probably B. It's a hex with like a short-ish range. It was 15, wasn't it? Oh god, it's 12. It's still B, but I'm just sad about it. I'm going to skip one because I want to talk about the lore of the Horned Rat.
Oh yeah.
I think this lore is actually incredible. I think it's one of the best signature spell lores in the game. Skitterleap, you pick a character and you move them around anywhere within 24 inches, which is very funny. It's not something I want to do currently, but like maybe there's a meta where that becomes a thing, or maybe there's some way to make. I don't know. I'm not taking it. What I'm taking are the other two. So Warp Lightning, I didn't take this, but playing against Jack, he has opened my eyes to how good this is, and it's more just like a numbers thing. But it's a 18-inch range magic missile, cast on a 10, D3 plus 1, strength 5 hits, AP 3. That's just output.
Yeah, very good. Strength 5 is just nasty in this game.
AP 3 is nasty in this game.
Yeah, very good spell. I really like this spell. It's obviously got the limitation of being quite a high casting value spell, which makes it tricky to use.
Yes.
But I think it's got a very good output. And anytime you can take a magic missile as your signature, I think you're onto a winner.
Yeah, sorry, my brain's just caught up with what I said. I think I said it's one of the best lores in the game, and then I've looked at the other lores, and I take that back. It's a very good lore. I'm going to put it in A tier.
I think it also has an excellent vortex. I really like
it. Does. That's the one that I was. Yeah. So this is the better spell. So the magic missile's good, but it's a 9-inch range magical missile. So effectively, you place the small inch blast template within 9. And any enemy models within 3 are at -1 toughness. Minus toughness is hard to get, especially for Skaven. But you could theoretically go dark, and you could get -2. You don't need to. The -1's just nice. It's a really solid spell to have. Remains in play, Vortex on a 9+. We know those hang around because of Pillar of Fire. It's effectively got a range of 13.5 inches from your caster, because 9 inches to the center hole, 1.5 inches for the actual template, and then 3 inches from there. It doesn't hit your allies. It's also dangerous terrain. It doesn't move. You can position it where you want to. It's just really, really solid to have. Winslow says Skaven's lore's biggest issue is that it's the lore for Skaven. First of all, how dare you, sir? How dare you?
Yeah, I think
Skaven are fine.
You need to take this. If you're going to take Skaven, I think the best way to play it is to take possibly 2, 3, 4 even casters, and just take as many of these laws, these signatures as you can take, because the signature spells are so good. You definitely want one of these in your list.
Yeah,
and you probably want some of the magic missiles as well. So it's trying to get enough casters to actually get all the good spells. It's been the hardest thing, I think.
Yeah, because you capped at 2 level 4s, so you're going to be taking after that a couple of level 2s realistically. But no, I really like it. I think A tier for me. I would put it in there. I'm not sure where I haven't ordered these, but yeah, A tier. Which of the last 2 do you want to talk about first?
Well, probably the one I've used. I haven't used the Ogre one. That's the one I played against.
I have.
So yeah, do you want to take the Ogres?
Yeah. All right, Ogres then. Lore of the Great Moor. This is a pretty solid lore. You've got Toothcracker, which is it's only until the end of your turn, which is bad, but it's +1 toughness. If you cast on a 10+, you get +2 to toughness. That's very funny, but it doesn't last until your next turn, so it's just bad. I'm sure there are some niche uses for it, but if you want more defense, just take Troll Guts, which is an 8 or an 11 enchantment. It's a 15-inch range, gives regen 6 up, or if you cast on 11 or more, regen 5 up, lasts until start of turn. That's just a really good buff.
Right.
You can't argue with that. It's not only is it like 11's maybe a little high for regen 5 up. I'd maybe like it on a 10, but it's cast on a unit that you don't have to be in. So we've seen what's it called? What's the elemental ward save called?
Earthen Ramparts.
Earthen Ramparts. That's a 10, and that's, cast outside. But also, if you roll poorly, if you only cast it on an 8, you still get it off, and it's a 6-up regen. Like, that's really nice to have that flexibility, because that means if you roll a 4 on the dice as a level 4 caster, you get the spell off, assuming it doesn't get dispelled. I like it. It's really solid. Because the best banner in the game, in the codex, in the army book, is the regen banner, realistically. So it just gives you a second unit with regen.
Yeah, you're definitely taking this. You're definitely taking this with ogres, and they really lean to regen. It really helps them out.
The one downside to it is that it is not a ranged self spell, which is good some of the time. But if you're in combat, you then just don't get to cast it if you stay tied up in combat, which can be a real downside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So for me, I think just being able to put regen on things is probably A tier.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
So, and talking about regen, we've got Bretonnians, which have got a similar spell. They have Lady's Gift, which is a regen spell as well. 6+ regen, and then a 5-up if you roll high.
Yeah.
The good thing about this is that you can cast it on friendly units, which is nice. The downside is it's remain in play. So just similar to the Nurgle spell, it's got that limitation that if your caster wants to go in, which often Bretonnian wizards have to kind of keep within 12, their characters are going deep. You have to follow them in with them. It makes it a little bit difficult to work with, but I think on a Baron or something like that, or a Duke who is on a big unit of Pegasus, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good spell. Regen on those is nice. People like to take it with Grail Knights, but I think actually it's better on those tanky units like Pegasus or Dukes that are going to end up fighting dragons and things like that.
Remains in play is actually a bonus if you're playing against me, because I've never remembered to dispel it in the 2 games I've played against Bretonnians who've taken it. Both times they cast it turn 1, and then I go to attack them, and I'm like, bugger, I completely forgot to dispel that. Oh, well, we're past that now. It's too late.
And it's only a 7 on the low value, so it's actually quite easy to get rid of.
Yeah.
The other spell that's worth maybe mentioning is the Lady's Wrath, which is a self-enhancement, which gives you +1 strength and AP. Now, this only really comes up, I think, I've ever seen someone take it with Elise Duchar, because she can take 2 signature spells. Sure. Sometimes I've seen her take the Lady's Gift and this spell. If they've rolled bad on Elementalism, you have that option. The downside is, though, it's a remain in play spell, and you have to be in the unit, so you have to... I don't like her being in units. I like her being on her own. So having that is a bit of a kicker. But I think it's not a terrible spell. It's got some uses. +1 strength and AP on a unit on an army that wants to get in combat is okay.
Yeah, my feeling on this is it's probably a B. Like, I don't feel super jazzed by either of the spells because there remains in play. It's not technically a build around, but like I don't think it's an A tier lore.
What this combos well with is battle magic, because you're going to take battle magic. I think on your wizards, you're going to take Lore Familiar. Probably, I think Lore Familiar anyway. You're going to take your 3 good spells that you want, maybe Oaken Shield, but if you've already got a ward from the Blessing, because you think you're going to be facing Strength 5, you can then take regen as well. So having regen and your 5-up ward plus all your 3, plus your move again. Pillar and Fireball, plus maybe a Ruby Ring as well, gives you a really nice prophetess. The only downside is you've got Elise Duchar, who is a very good wizard as well. So it's you got a bit of play there. You can decide which one's better for you.
Yeah, that's fair. So how do you feel about putting it in B? Do you want it higher or lower?
I think B is about right.
Perfect. I'm glad we agree on that one. Fantastic. So we've done pretty well. We've done it in just over probably 2 hours by the time we actually started talking about them and outside of the self-promotion. So if you disagree with this tier list, turns out it's really easy to rate things that are objectively good or bad. The stuff in the middle is a little more difficult, but I don't want to hear it in the YouTube comments. If you disagree, put your money where your mouth is. I'm going to put a link to the tier list down below, and there is a channel in the Discord where you can post yours and tell me why I'm wrong and why you can justify your own. Because you'll get halfway through doing it and realize, oh crap, it's way harder than it looks like. So if you want to criticize me, feel free to do so, but do it in Discord. Friendly and friendly criticism only. It's not we don't want any bastards. Anything else for you, Ramsey? Anything that you want to say before we wrap up for the evening and then go into a Discord call and start building and painting models?
No, I really love the magic in this game. I think actually the casting maybe's got a problem, but I think that you can see from the way we put things, I think there's lots of good options for magic.
I agree. I think it's really interesting. I think magic is like in quite a narrow band. there is a couple of things that are way outside of it. So like Pillar of Fire is too good, and some of the Necromancy stuff is probably too good as well. But outside of that, everything else feels like it's in a fairly safe zone. Whereas previous editions, where you might lose your entire army if you're playing Lizardman and you have a low initiative, a little bit harder to deal with. So I like the magic system. I think it needs a little tweak, but yeah, I feel pretty good about it.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.